OMO Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Dunigan.
And we finally have gotten around to our top 10 list of 2018 of all our favorite movies. And, 2018 I think was kind of an interesting one. About 3/4 into that year, I kind of thought, well, it's not that there's not good movies, but it's just not nearly as strong as it seems like those last three are. But probably about towards the end, after I kind of rounded up all the movies and looked at them and the year ended and everything like that, I'm like, I don't know, actually at the same time, it still is a pretty darn good. I mean, every year's a good year for movies no matter what. I just think some kind of stand out a little bit more than others.
Yeah, well, looking at my list, there was a few I had to, nah, that one can't go on. Like, I have to choose one or the other. This one can't make it, unfortunately. But last year we did a top 15. Fuck it, let's do top 15, because there's some movies we just want to mention, and not do a whole just, like honorable mention thing, just movies you really just want to mention and talk about for a minute. They're like, yeah, you know what, this year, it was, well, like you said, not a bad year for movies. I mean, if you look long enough, you can find a good year. You can find, every year is pretty much a good year.
Yeah.
There's enough good things that come out each year. Like, one of my favorite movies I've seen I'll save it for what it is, but one of my favorite movies the last couple years came out this year. So, I can't complain about them.
Yeah, no. And it's just like one of those ones, like some of those years, it's just like you almost just feel like you gotta make the 15 list and so on. And this one, you could make a 20 list. I mean, it's not saying you couldn't. But it's one of those ones, like, 'cause the movies that they are very solid, don't get me wrong, and there's tons of great films out there, but it's always fun just to round it up and then to do the old catch-up, too, to see which ones you missed throughout the years. Like, even I was catching up even right towards the last second, but I guess we were...
I want to say this, there's two movies that I did not get a chance to see. I did not see Aquaman, unfortunately.
I still cannot figure out how you did not see Aquaman. That's like literally a Batman movie coming out and Ryan being like, yeah, I'll get to it.
Here's right. Truth time. Aquaman, he's a character I like, but I never really drawn to go buy an Aquaman comic. I have a couple random ones, and I like him, but he's never a character that really just... I think he's a cool character, and I like it when he's, like, part of a team ensemble or something like that, but he himself never just totally pulled me in. It's one of those things I meant to go see it, but just, new job, holiday schedule, going back and forth to Sonora... stuff with my girlfriend. I just haven't had a chance to go see it, and I'll see it eventually. Maybe I'll do a retroactive thing, like, oh, it does go on the list, or it doesn't. That one, and I started watching Bad Times at the El Royale. I did not finish it. I got halfway through. I was actually watching it right before we started the show, and I liked where it was going, but without seeing the whole thing, I can't say if it goes on the list or not. So, yeah.
Well, we'll just get started with our list and go from there. What's your first one on the old number 10?
My first one is Avengers 3, Infinity War.
Ah, there you go. God, that one, I feel bad. That one didn't make my top 15.
Well, the thing about this movie
but then again,
is...
you didn't see Aquaman, so there was a space for it.
Maybe. We'll see what happens. Here's the thing about Avengers 3. I liked Avengers 2 more, when Avengers 2 came out. Like, that's one of the Marvel movies that you and I both really liked. Everyone else is kind of like, about.
That's literally my top 3 favorite my favorite Marvel Studios movies.
Same thing here. Yeah, it's somewhere in the top 5 for me, definitely. And Avengers 3, it's not within my top 5 Marvel movies or anything like that, but it's still a fun movie, and it's more one of those things. It's surprising that they had a movie jam-packed with that many characters, that much going on. It still made sense, and it didn't suck. Like, how much shit was happening in that movie. There'd be moments, literally, where I kind of forgot, oh yeah, they got their thing going on. Oh yeah, they have that thing going on. And when I first walked out of the movie, I liked it, but I wasn't blown away by it. And then thinking back, I'm like, maybe I was being a little harsh on it. And then when I was on my vacation over like a few months back, I watched it on the plane again, liked it a little bit more. It was on Netflix the other night. I watched it again. I'm like, you know what? All my problems with it regarding the jokes and whatnot, that can be really summed up in 3 scenes out of this 2-hour, 45-minute movie. And the movie is generally pretty solid. It's just a fun action movie that kind of leads up. It's all kind of building off everything. And it doesn't forget. It's not like it just brushes shit under the rug. It really pulls back things you kind of, like small things you didn't take into account that were just offhand mentioned in the movies. Like the relationship between Tony Stark, Peter Parker, other things to that effect. The Guardians of the Galaxy, even though there's some of my favorite characters, unfortunately they bring it down a little bit. That's probably why it's a little lower at 10. Mm-hmm. But that being said, Iron Man, I thought Robert Downey Jr. was a good job, but he kind of could be hit and miss with it, was just piling on too much of the humor, and he was actually probably one of the best parts of the movie. Thanos, probably one of their best characters, which is a character I thought that, like, no way this character is just going to disappoint. There's been so much build up to him, and somehow they found a way to make him one of the most interesting villains with just one movie, really, because everything else has been cameos.
Yeah, Thanos is my favorite part of that movie. Really, that's really like, to me, it's like when I look at them, I'm like, dude, I'm all on Team Thanos' side right there. I get it. I think Thanos should take over. Why not? Let's do it. He knows what he's doing. I could trust a big pink guy.
Like Thanos. The angry grimace. Yeah. So Thanos. I mean, I just thought, everything about that movie was just. At the end of the day, it wasn't a perfect movie, but it's a really fun movie that moves along really quickly, and it's kind of like surprising it was actually just a good movie. You know what I mean? Just for how much, because usually if it's an Avengers movie, they can condense it down to just, okay, these 7 characters or whatever. This had like 40 something characters in it, and it still made sense as it went through. So that's why this is my number 10.
No, I think Avengers actually is one of like the higher like Marvel movies out there, and I actually did kind of enjoy that one quite a bit. Yeah, it's one of those ones, like, it's other than the Guardians of the Galaxy part, like, it's kind of weird, because it's like, Guardians of the Galaxy 1 is such a good movie, and even 2 is good. It has its moments where it can kind of, like, go off the rails for a split second, but it'll come back on, momentaire. Where, in this one, it's kind of like, they almost go like, they're the stupid, funny characters, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, okay, good, we're back to, ironically, we're back to Iron Man, it's getting serious again. That's how that movie went.
Well, just to cap that off, because I really like the Guardians of the Galaxy, and the first Guardians, one of my favorite movies. Number 2 I like a lot too. Just when they're in the room with Thanos and Thor and Star-Lord, and they're just talking shit back and forth, that part lingered on a bit. Same thing with like Drax being, I can move so perfectly still, that, just do the weird. It felt like I was kind of watching a Judd Apatow movie for a second, so maybe that's why it's a little, like, some of those kind of scenes, they're only like part of the movie, but they drag on.
Yeah.
So those don't kill the movie for me, but I like the movie. I like it enough for it to go on the list, and I like to own it someday. Since it's streaming, I'm not in a big rush yet. And plus, it's like nearly a 3-hour movie.
Oh, yeah, I forgot how long it is, because I haven't seen it since theaters, and it's like, don't get me wrong, I did totally enjoy it, not saying anything there, and it was pretty dialed in, but, yeah, I need to pop that one on again, too. Rewatch that bad boy.
So what's your
My number 10 is Mission Impossible 6. Tom Cruise, Tom Cruise.
There's another one I need to check out.
And this was also one of those, like, this Mission Impossible 6 day was also sort of a sad day. It was the same day that something very big just totally crashed and died all in one flaming wreck. And that was MoviePass. It was like Mission Impossible 6 came out and it was just too big for MoviePass to handle.
Not enough room.
And they just came down like in a flying wreck. You know what I mean? Like almost like no different than like the ending scene of Armageddon coming into the earth. Then just evaporating up there. Making a sacrifice. That's what happened on that day. But and you know what? To this day and age, MoviePass, they made claims that they couldn't back up. They told me they would repay for my Mission Impossible 6 ticket and it'd all be good. And I never got that. But not putting MoviePass down. It was a good 4-year run. It was fun times while it lasted. It kind of makes you feel like, I guess you were like in one of those 60s bands, and then like, your singer fucking ODs and dies. You're like, well, we're the Doors, and gosh, shit, what are we gonna do now? I guess we'll make some kind of weird albums that people will dig, but no one's gonna buy them because Jim Morrison ain't in it. So it was a fun run while it went.
We can't put him shirtless on the cover, people. That's
Yeah,
the thing they did for a while. That's why I felt bad for like the Doors, because you'd just see like this poster of Jim Morrison, arms stretched out,
just like
whatever,
pushing
like
the other
the
guy's
Doors
faces away with his hands.
You might see the other 3 in the background, kind of like
Creeping in,
kind of the opacity's turned down, like they're kind of ghosts in the background,
But no, that was like the start of that Mission Impossible there. But beyond that, though, it's just another really solid Mission Impossible movie. Like the action in it is just, Tom Cruise, that's what he does. He pretty much makes a sacrifice every time he goes out and shoots a movie, just to make sure that we get awesome, real special effects once again. He'll tie himself to an airplane. He'll jump out of the tallest building. You know what I mean? He'll go underwater for hours on end. Tom Cruise always wants to entertain us. You know what I mean? He's like the court jester for the world, but not in a funny way. Like in an awesome action way.
Like if the court jester just constantly running for like 2.5 hours straight, doesn't stop, doing like the knife hands as he runs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's almost what it is. There's always some bomb going off. Ving Rhames always is going to need something, you know what I mean? And but no, the Mission Impossible 6 definitely...
He breaks his ankle and keeps running.
Definitely go out of your way and check it out. It's just got some awesome action scenes in it. It runs a lot longer than normal Mission Impossible movies. It's like 2 hours and 30 minutes. It's kind of weird because all the rest of them are about around that 2 hours, give or take, point.
That's another one that got by me that I heard nothing but good things about, but I had every intention of seeing. So yeah,
yeah, it's so good. It's it's more like it goes to show that Mission Impossible series is one of those weird ones where like I feel like they only get kind of better as time goes on. Now I don't think this one's better than maybe the last couple. It's still really good, but very rarely do you ever say like, you know what, one and two are almost the weaker entries of the movies compared to everything else. That's just such a weird thing to say. You know what I mean? How many other franchises does someone go, you know what, that first Matrix was kind of weak compared to, like, 3?
You never hear that.
Never
well,
hear
it's
that,
also,
right?
we're at this point where people have a better idea of what to do for a sequel now. I mean, not always. Sometimes they do too much, like, laying down foundation for what they hope to be more sequels, but now we're at the point where it's like, you know what, we know, and like, you know, I mean, how many movies are actually better with the sequels now? I mean, a lot of the superhero movies usually get better. Mm-hmm. Not always, but usually.
Well, and even when I was a kid, I always thought sequels lots of times were better. Like, maybe there's just like that thing that people told you, like adults would tell you, like, no, the original one's always better. Like, yeah, right. Hat spins around backwards without me having to do it, just like 90s attitude era comes in. Let me tell you.
Well,
Let me tell you what's better. Lethal Weapon 2. I mean, the first one is really good. I mean, I feel like I'm lying to myself saying this now, but...
I'm still going Lethal Weapon 1. 2 is probably second
that
best.
One's definitely, like, I think. The Lethal Weapon 2...
It goes 1, 2, 4, 3.
That's my exact same order, too. For some reason, I feel like I always want to like 3 more, but, like, it's good, but just not as good as the other 3. That's all I gotta say.
But I'll say this. I won't harp on, like, you know, sequel history stuff too long, but I think one of the reasons why sequels for so long weren't as good is because they usually didn't have as big of a return, so they would intentionally make the budget lower, and they're like, we got to simplify this thing enough for people who didn't see it in theaters, because VHS, DVD, and streaming is not a thing yet. So now it's like a sequel can move forward, like, you should have seen this one by now. If you don't know, you know, streaming's a thing, so go see it before you see this shit. So I think that's why.
My grandpa had a quote back in the day. He told me, he was old. Last time I went to a movie, it's called Son of Kong. I went in there, came out, had no idea what was going on. I leaned on the person next to me, and they go, well, didn't you see the first one? Nope. Last time I went to the movie.
No one said it was a fucking homework assignment.
Yeah. You want to know where I was when they were showing the first one again, and, you know, when they did the reruns? It's called WW2.
It's killing Nazis.
Yeah, you know, I mean, when it first came out, I was just a boy. I didn't fucking have rich going to the movie theaters in the 30s. What do you think we are?
Wait,
Roosevelt?
I had a nickel back then? Fuck no. Yeah. No, so that's your number 10 right
My number
there?
10 is Mission Impossible. I feel like that's a good, solid action movie to kind of to start my list off, you know, with something classic, Tom Cruise, you know, it's just one of those ones, like, you just got to kind of see it. Just like any Mission Impossible movie, they're just amazing. Just, you know, some of the best action you'll see in any film.
Okay. Well, I guess that moves us to number 9 right now. My number 9, and it's not a movie I was expecting to like as much as I did, was Ready Player One. And the thing about that movie is, like I said, I read parts of the book because I was in part of a book club thing, and then I went and hit all the major points, and you know, and from what I read of it, I was like, God, this is a tough book. Not like it was tough to read, like it was it's above my reading level. But I mean, it just wasn't that great of a book, and it just seemed really, really fan servicey. And the only thing keeping me going to the theater was like, well, it's directed by Spielberg.
Got Steven,
you know,
good old Steven.
People can say what they want about, you know, like, oh, Steven Spielberg, his best days are behind him or whatever, but he's still fucking Spielberg. He knows what he's doing. You know, there's a reason why he's one of the best. So, went to go see this movie just thinking, like, it's Spielberg, we'll go check it out, you know. And then sure enough, like, oh, wow, this was way better than I thought it was going to be. And it's kind of like, it's ironic because it makes a big homage to The Shining, but it's kind of like, and it's not, of course, as good as The Shining, but it's kind of like what Kubrick did for The Shining. Mm-hmm. He took the things that he liked. He got rid of a lot of the extra filler and changed enough to make it maybe his own thing, but more of like you just elaborated what was good about it. And yeah, there was a lot of fanboy stuff in it, but that's part of the thing of the book, and as well as the movie. But at the same time, it wasn't like 2 pages of a guy bragging and flexing that I know all the characters from He-Man. Oh, we have like these you got served moments with nerd culture. Oh, it's like it was literally just it felt like just like a lot of the book felt like just like nerds from the AV club just fucking talking about quoting Monty Python and Magic the Gathering and all that kind of bullshit. And there's some moments where it's just like, okay, that's kind of cool, but a lot of it was just me just like, fuck, this book, it's such a long, it's not even a long book, but it felt like such a fucking slog. And like I said, I didn't even read the whole fucking thing. I was reading it, so like, I'm not going to finish this thing in time. Things tomorrow. I listened to a synopsis. I looked up major parts and read those chapters of the major parts. Like, okay, I know enough to where I go in there, I can talk about it. But it's like, it just took that, focused down on certain things, and one thing I hear people say a lot about the movie, which seems kind of awkward, and I kind of see what they mean, is the whole relationship between Percival and Artemis. How he just says, I love you, Artie, and the way that comes across to me is it's not meant to be a good thing. It's meant to be like, this dude is some weird internet nerd who is just for the first time met a girl who has a little bit in common with him. He's like, I love you. Like, oh shit, this got awkward. I think that's what that's meant to be, not like a real like. But as time goes on, it becomes something kind of more real. And it's a very simple, straightforward movie, but it's a fun movie, and it's fun to point out certain characters. But it's just it's just a nostalgia ride, and if you know what you're watching, it works for that.
Oh yeah, no, that was one of those movies that was like, it was initially on my top 10 list, and then as kind of time went on, I looked at the other movies, I'm like, oh, this is it's like one of those ones, totally like the honorable mention ones and stuff like that. But that was one of those movies too where like I didn't know what to expect going to the theaters. I literally just put all my faith in Steven. I was like, you know what, Steven's never really let me down. Even if there's Steven and Tom Cruise and those two guys never let me down, maybe the one slight time they let me down is because Steven put 2 fucking children in there that shouldn't have been allowed in a movie, and I know we've mentioned this so many times. But beyond that Steven moment, Steven never lets me down. He's always there. He's always got my back, no matter where we are. You know what I mean? You know how Steven is. Steven's always there to party. And he's always bringing the... He's got your back in a barroom. He does. So I put all my faith... A
70-year-old Jewish man with a baseball cap.
Yeah, because looking at that movie trailer, it was just like, if that wasn't Steven Spielberg, I probably might not have seen it. You know what I mean? It was one of those ones where it's just like, God, is this pandering as much as possible? Just like those kind of... Because that's the thing, it's like, it's weird how references work. References is such a tough one. You know what I mean? You gotta be kind of careful. Like, you can either do it super good, like a Scott Pilgrim type thing, or you can go way too far, like a Paper Girls, and some of these other things that you kind of just see, like, between Netflix and so on. A lot of TV shows now. I mean, like, there's that one, it's, what the heck's it called? The Goldbergs. Like, it's probably a funny show, but that show, like, all their ads is just like, guess what it is today? It's 87! Whoa! We're doing something 87! It's just like, okay, yeah, those references is really what's running that show. I mean, granted, there might be some great jokes in between. I don't know, but like the advertising campaign on it, I feel is like too much. I mean, maybe somebody could kind of say that with That 70s Show when it came out, but that stuff always felt like it was still a little bit subtle. I mean, maybe they'd have the episode where Steven Tyler shows up or something like that, but beyond that, it just felt like, oh, it takes place in the 70s. It just happens to be a sitcom in the 70s. That's all it is.
And that's what Ready Player One felt like. It felt like, oh, it takes place in this world where you can be whatever character you want. There's Ryu in the background. There's Sonic for a second. There's Freddy Krueger. And it's one of those things where, when's the next time you think you're going to see a movie where it's a 3-way fight between the Iron Giant, Mechagodzilla, and a Gundam? Yep. I mean, you could say that's as fanboyish pandering as possible, but
that's so cool.
And plus, it's kind of it's like at one point, and plus, kind of Steven Spielberg homaging. Not, I mean, it sounds kind of douchey when I say it, homaging himself, but like at one point, he was trying to make a Gundam movie, fell through. At one point, he was considering bringing Akira to the big screen. He's like, I don't know if it's going to sell. It's an animated movie with all this cursing, a little bit of nudity, but he still made a nod to it, and just things that. There's things that he was going to work on that didn't get a chance to work on that he put in this movie, which was cool. And he didn't just make it all about shit he's done. It's there, but it's not all about him. And it's just a movie that's like, if you know what you're
that makes it feel like it's like it was the Smash Brothers of Steven Spielberg movie.
Yeah, it kind of was. Yeah, it is kind of smash. You know, like Alan Grant versus E.T.
Yeah, they're just like in that freeze frame, like while it's loading. Dude, I would totally buy the Steven Spielberg Smash Brothers game.
E.T.'s B button is throwing Reese's Pieces.
Yeah, exactly.
His down B is healing.
His up B is he rides the bicycle up and over the moon. But no, Ready Player One was that one where like those moments like that, like when I just remember seeing like the Mechagodzilla versus, you know, Iron Giant and a Gundam. It's just kind of like that was like a magical moment right there. And there's so many other characters. I mean, you see like Battletoads running out there and everything like that. And it's like the references are there, but the thing I think it tops up is I think just the story itself. It's just such a cool one. You got this kind of nerdy guy from like the 70s and 80s who kind of grew up playing like Atari and so on and just wanted to make video games and make a real cool world. And I mean, it can sound, I guess, a little bit corny, but I think it's still like portrayed really well. If this guy kind of like, he hides these secret Easter eggs in there. You got to go find them, and it's like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. That's literally when I showed that to my parents. I told my mom, it's like Willy Wonka. That's the only way I can explain this.
Well, it's also the thing about the whole character, Holiday, whatever his name was.
That's his name.
He actually he seemed like a very sad, sympathetic person. Yeah. Like he seemed like a guy who regretted, like he made all this stuff, but he regretted not living a life outside the Oasis. Like, and it's one of those things, like, you can have escapism, but it can't be your whole life. And I think that in the book kind of like, oh yeah, hey kid, yeah, you did all this stuff, but don't play video games as much. Get out there a little bit. Okay, cool, right on. Where in the movie, it kind of nails that a lot more. Doesn't really shame you for liking it, but it says, hey, you gotta kind of you gotta live in the real world every so often. And I like that about the movie. So, and it was just a good, fun movie, and yeah. It surprised me. I was expecting it to just be walk out of it was okay. Why? Spielberg did it. But no, he took it from being a thing I thought was just going to be okay to the thing I really liked.
Yeah, no. That one is a pretty darn solid movie. Well, I guess that comes around to my number 9. My number 9 is bigger. That's the one I'm going with. The Joe Weider and Ben Weider biopic story. Did you see this one at all? Probably not.
No, I didn't even hear about this one.
Yeah, this one's pretty much, and Joe Weider and Ben Weider are the guys that put together like Muscle and Fitness and Flex and Shape and all those magazines. But not only that, the Mr. Olympia competition comes from him. So it just kind of goes through their entire life from like, you know, the 1930s all the way on up to about, I think it ends, well, like the ending of the movie's kind of, or there's this like kind of goes back and forth between like he's at his brother's funeral or Joe's at Ben's funeral. And he's just talking to this guy about his story, and it kind of goes back and forth at different points in time. And, you know, it's got all the bodybuilders in there, all the big ones. Like, it's got, like, you know, little Frank Zane. It's got, of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger's played by this bodybuilder named Callum. What's his last name? But whatever, he's really awesome. Does a great job. So you get, like, you know, the Arnold section of it. You get Sergio Olivier in there, just all the little stories of him going against the Mr. Universe contest and so on. And really, you know, biopics, those are always some of my favorite movies, no matter what. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, you can make a biopic on almost anybody, even people like I don't even know anything about, and they can be awesome. It's just one of those things, like, I'm sold on these kind of cool stories, and not only just liking, you know, reading Muscle and Fitness, you know, and so on, and, you know, of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger and all that good stuff, and all the classic bodybuilders, you know, it's just too cool.
Yeah, right on. That sounds pretty good. What, is this like a first-time director? Do you know?
I don't know who the director is. Probably not a first-time director, because mostly biopics mostly aren't done by first-time ones. It was one of those movies that had like a limited probably release and so on. Like you probably couldn't just you can't just go to any theater and see it. But because I had to watch it off like Amazon. It was like, well, I don't have a theater anywhere near me to watch this one.
Well, that sounds pretty good. I want to check that out. I didn't even heard of this movie.
Yeah, well, I only knew about it just from like bodybuilding podcasts. That was like probably the only advertising it had was on there. But yeah, it's really cool. Check it out.
All right. Well, I guess that brings us to number 8. My number 8 was Upgrade from Blumhouse Pictures.
That was a cool movie.
Now, that was another one that kind of sort of slid under the radar, and I think this movie, it's kind of like the tech version of Venom, but better.
Yeah, it really is.
When it gets down to
well, this was also one of those movies too. It didn't have a major release. It had like a small release, so that's why it's kind of hard to see.
Yeah, and I'm glad I saw it in theaters. It almost got by me, but it was like on its like I think it's like last week, and I was just like, oh shit, it's still here. Let me check this one out. And I was with a group of friends, like we never even heard of this. Like, well, it's supposed to be pretty awesome. It's told them the concept that basically this guy, it's a little bit in the future, not too far in the future, but in the future. He's a mechanic. He likes to work with his hands, but he's living in this, very techie world where everything is automated for you now. You got machines doing this. Everything's AI based, and he's just like one of those mans who just likes to get his hands dirty and work on a 1970 Charger, And his girlfriend works for a tech company, and so he just got done doing this thing for he's got done making it, like upgrading this car for some like young tech entrepreneur. Takes it over there. The guy's like, here's this AI I'm working on. He's a little space. He's like, yeah man, that's great, whatever, go fuck yourself, I'm out, give me my money. And then on the way there, he ends up getting into a car. The car leads, it's on automatic, it's on like AI automatic or whatever, leads him into this ghetto. His girlfriend gets shot and killed, or his fiance, whatever, and they leave him paraplegic, and that's where the tech guy comes in and says, yo man, I got this thing. But essentially the way it works is it can snap into
so he comes to like
neck.
the hospital, and he's just like, his like head's like slightly to like, hey, you sold me that car, I got this chip for you. He's just like very awkward and creepily like floating in of his blonde hair, like woo, 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 woo. He looks like he should be part of like the Slytherin house or some shit. Yeah, he's like, he literally was. He was like somebody who graduated of honors at Slytherin.
Like he doesn't even leave the room. He just kind of like descends beneath the bed, like
he like slithers
back
like,
of the shadows,
like backwards, like he's doing the limbo or something.
On his back out into the shadows. Yeah. No. Anyway, he's like, yo, I got this AI that can snap back into your neck and it can make you walk again. And so what essentially ends up happening is he gets this AI, and apparently it reattaches all the nerves, and it almost has this voice in the back of his head that's telling him things he can do, things he should do. I don't remember the voice's name, but
the voice I think had a name, but like
it had a name, but I don't remember it. And then essentially he uses that to go track down the guys who tried to kill him and killed his wife. And in the process, it's one of those things, it's not this guy's in decent shape, but it's not that he's so good. It's just the robot, the little AI chip in the back of his head says like, if you allow me, I can give me full control. I know exactly the points to hit. So it's more one of those things like it's a mathematical thing. Like, oh, I just dodge like this. So it kind of goes into autopilot, and this thing just kind of kills everybody in the room. And there's some comical scenes. Like there's a part where it's just like, please allow me to handle the problem. And then it just like full on like almost partially decapitates a guy. Like he puts a blade in this dude's mouth and then pulls it all the way back to the point where part of his head is just dangling off. He's like, oh fuck, like that is an uncommon response or whatever, or something like that. Like, problem solved. But now we should, it's something horrible will happen, and the voice will just be very calm and say, tell him what to do and tell him how to walk through it. But the movie gets progressively dark and fucked up as it goes on, but it's still a good movie, and it was actually, for being like a violent revenge movie, it was pretty smart. So.
Yeah, no, I like that one quite a bit. That was one of those ones, if we had a top 15 list, it would have totally been on there, because it was pretty cool. I liked a lot of the tech in there. All the deaths in it were great. And then just to have that tad bit of comedy just sprinkled over top. And really it was, at the end of the day, that was like, if you just put Venom over the top of that movie, you would have had an amazing Venom movie. It was literally what Venom should have been before Venom came out.
Pretty much.
It's sad to say, like, in a world that we have a Venom movie out there, and it's like, yeah, it was just okay. It's just like, that should never be the case. You should never say it's okay with Venom.
Well, I'll say this. I'm not going to say how this movie ends, but the way this movie ends is the way Venom should have ended.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that, I think that's, I won't spoil it, because
because it has an interesting ending there, but, what was that, your number 9?
That was my number 8. Well, actually, let me say this. I mixed that up. Let's call that my number 7, because I'm looking at what my next number 7 is, and I'm like, ooh, I should have switched those two around. But go ahead with your number 8.
Okay, my number 8 is Mandy. And this movie right here is one of those ones where it's not a perfect movie. It's definitely like one of those ones. There's probably movies that are like below it on my list that would actually be like more solid. But Mandy's one of those movies where it's just so interesting. Like, it's a film that like, you don't normally get one of these like every single year. And the fact that like you got Nicolas Cage starring in it, and it's a movie that feels like this should have been the first movie Nicolas Cage ever did. It has that kind of feel to it. Like, it feels like you're 19 years old and you feel like you want to go shoot movies out in the woods with your buddies. That's what Mandy sort of is. But that's not saying anything down or against it. It's just that's how it kind of feels. Because like it's one of those revenge movies, kind of like Upgrade as well, where there's Nicolas Cage and then he's got like his wife or girlfriend or whatever, and then this like hippie cult thing takes his girlfriend and like kills her and so on. And it's even got this guy who's just sort of like there. He's got like long blonde hair and he's just like, I'm the leader of these like hippie people, blah 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 blah. And it takes place in like 83 or something. She's got a Motley Crue t-shirt on of like Shout the Devil, so that kind of like was what reminds me what year it's supposed to be exactly.
I heard that is the guy that played Thomas Wayne in Batman Begins.
Yes, it is that guy actually. I forgot about that. But yeah, he does a good job. He just has that kind of like, I'm just gonna act and just say, go here and chew scenery as it goes on. And the first hour, really, nothing really happens in this movie. It's one of those movies where it has total 70s buildup. Nothing really happens. You just kind of watch in there. You watch this weird cult. You watch Nicolas Cage. He's like a lumberjack and shit, like working out in the woods. That part's actually kind of cool. And then as his wife kind of gets captured or whatever in there, and then Nicolas Cage has to go finally save her, that's when you know shit's going to get real. And Nicolas Cage goes there and then just starts like murdering people and then brutally going it. And there's even a part two where there's this guy like watching, like just sitting there on the couch, like watching porn or whatever. And Nicolas Cage just like walks in and the guy's like snorting coke off the table or whatever, just like sitting there. It's like there's just like sitting there on this couch and whatnot. He just like brutally gets in this fight and just murders the guy and so on. When the guy's laying there dead, he just goes down and just starts sniffing the coke. He's like, yeah, just pumping himself up. Like he's just like, no going back now. I mean, and then he goes to like the bathroom at one point, and for some reason, like somebody should have gave Nicolas Cage some pants. I don't know why he didn't have pants on. He just had whitey tighties on, and he's walking in the bathroom, and he's just having the ultimate Nicolas Cage freakout moment. But it's so cool at the same time. And then as that movie keeps progressing, it's weirder and weirder. It goes beyond just like a straight like, like murder revenge movie to the point where like he grabs this chainsaw because he was a lumberjack earlier on, and there's another guy, and he's got an even bigger chainsaw, and they literally have a chainsaw sword fight, like, out by this car. And as he keeps progressing farther into this cult, they're like in a pyramid and so on like that, and it even gets sort of like, almost like sci-fi and weird, and it's got this very artsy kind of color to it and so on, going over the top. But yeah, it just starts getting weird and crazy and just out there, and it's filled with colors and just odd like music choices, and it's like it's artsy as fuck, but at the same time like that almost kind of, this is the movie it works for. It works just having the weird goofy artsiness to it, having that feel. It just, it just feels like when somebody's just watched A Clockwork Orange as a kid and a bunch of other stuff. It's like, you know what, let's go out, let's go do it, let's go shoot this movie in the woods. I know Nicolas Cage, he lives down the street.
Yeah, that was a movie I wanted to check out. It's another one that got by me. The only place it was playing at was at the Alamo Draft House. It had weird fucking times. But that
I
was
didn't
one of
even
those...
see it. I saw it. I had to rent that movie. Like, it didn't even come anywhere. It's like...
Oh, it's already on streaming?
No, I don't think it's on streaming. I rented it.
Oh, you rented it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, you mean, you did the Netflix?
Yeah, I got the physical Netflix for that one. Because that one just popped up there on the Netflix. Because, I was like, you'd probably like this one. I'm like, it's got Nicolas Cage in it. I don't see why I wouldn't like it. So I just grabbed them, like, sure. It's like, when I saw it in there, it's like, oh, cool. Murder revenge flick of Nicolas Cage, and he's old. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Let's see where we go with that. But that was one of those movies where it's an experience. That's the best way to kind of say it. And as I said, it's not a 4 out of 4 movie. It's not a perfect film. But it's one of those ones where you're like, that's something cool. It's almost like the more you think about it, you kind of go, man, that's really cool. And I bet you if you actually watched it a couple more times, too, it would just kind of add layers every single time you watched it. Because, I mean, these people he's battling the cult, it's like they literally summon these, like, demon things that come out, and they're almost like Mad Max-like / like the Gimp from, like, Pulp Fiction on motorcycles. And it's just so weird and bizarre and 80s feeling kind of at the same time. I actually almost say it's almost in a Hobo with a Shotgun kind of category. Not as exploitive as that movie is, but it's like, it's similar.
Not as tongue-in-cheek as that movie.
Yeah, it doesn't have any of the tongue-in-cheekness to it. It just kind of has, things just sort of happen. You're like, oh, that's kind of cool. Didn't know that's where we're going.
That's one I have to maybe see, because there's, that one, Mission Impossible, Aquaman, and I started watching Bad Times at El Royale. I'm going to finish that when we're done with this. But those are some movies that I really wanted to see before the show. But, you know, it is what it is. That one was one I heard a lot of mixed things about. But I'm like, I saw the trailer. I'm like, that's one I'd probably like if I saw it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll say this. You would like it. It's definitely a movie. You can't just show it to anybody. So that's why it's either you're going to think that movie's amazing or people would be like, dude, that movie's total garbage. You know what I mean? You know, Oscar people would think that movie's garbage. You know, I think...
Who?
People that like the Oscars and fucking Academy Awards and shit.
Oh, yeah.
They would think that movie's total garbage. But no. Filmmakers and people who are really into shit, it's awesome.
Yeah, that one. That's one I gotta check out still. So this next one, this is actually probably what should have been my number 8, and Upgrade should have been my number 7. But
Upgrade's getting a downgrade.
Upgrade's Upgrade. Well, Upgrade would have been higher on my list.
So Upgrade's getting upgraded. Okay.
Yeah, I would have had this as 7, but I just misread my list. So technically, my number 8, bumping up Upgrade to I can't. You get the idea. My number, what real number 8 is, but I guess now we're on 7. Island of Dogs.
Oh, that one's a really good one too. That one's on my list too, farther up. But Isle of Dogs is an amazing movie. And that was just one of those ones that I remember, like, the reason I went and saw that movie is because I couldn't make it home because it was snowing. I was like, fuck it, going to the movie theaters.
What'd you do once you got out?
Oh, the snow pretty much, like, melted by about that time period. But it was just that point where it's just like, it was just snowy enough, they're like, nope, not worth it. It was like literally like spinning out, like going up Twain Hearts, just like, fuck it, let's go down the highway. We're out of here. We're going to the movie theaters. And I went to go see Isle of Dogs. It was one of the ones I wanted to see, but like it wasn't like something else came out like the same day it did. So whatever that movie was, it's probably not on my list. Took its place in the beginning.
Probably had The Rock in it.
Oh, was it Skyscraper came out that same week? Because that was a great movie.
I don't know.
Too.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Probably had The Rock or someone like that.
But no, Isle of Dogs is like an amazing flick. And what I loved about it too is like, dude, it's literally a samurai movie with dogs. Like at the end of the day, that's what it is. I think a lot of people that like poo-pooed that movie didn't get that.
Oh, I think a lot of people are just looking to be outraged about. But that movie right there, it's just, I mean, can't say last time you saw a movie like that other than a samurai movie. You can't say last time you saw a samurai movie with dogs. And it was kind of...
And Jeff Goldblum's in it as a dog who's a samurai.
And like, I'll say this, Wes Anderson's kind of hit and miss with me. I usually like him, but I think he's a little kind of like, his stuff's a little too kind of artsy and pretentious sometimes, but this is a movie where I think his style really works, and I like claymation, and I kind of liked how the claymation, whenever he does that, it doesn't look pretty. It doesn't look overtly smooth. It looks kind of ugly and awkward, and I think kind of helps the mood of the movie, and I kind of liked, I just liked the characters. I liked Bryan Cranston. Mm-hmm. It's just this angry dog who just was more just begrudging to be with the rest of this pack, and everybody else was just like, the Ed Norton dog was the very serious one. He's like almost kind of the real leader. But, even though like they always kind of turn, and they all have names, like what was it? It was like King, like Duke, they all have like these names that imply, so they're all alpha dogs essentially.
Yeah, just kind of like working together. And then I also like too, they have those like weird angles that like anybody at probably a film school would tell you never use that angle, but like they would have like the dogs and like they were just literally like on one side of the camera just staring at it, talking to it like a Woody Allen kind of like monologue. But I felt like it worked really well. It gave it that very unique look to it all. And then like they kind of maybe turn around to like the background, something would be happening in the back, like as like the dog's explaining whatever the heck scene's going on. But no, I just thought it was just interesting. It's just like it was all in Japanese other than the dogs, which for some reason that was the part people threw off. They're like, why the movie has to be in Japanese? There's no reason it has to be in Japanese. And it was just like, did you not see the same fucking movie I saw? It's like, it's a samurai movie. That's why it's in Japanese. Totally makes sense. There's these Japanese people, and they have the dogs, and they have this trash island, and they exile all the dogs to there. And then these dogs have this old like band of samurai-ness where they have the boy, and it's like, it makes sense. If you just see the samurai movie, it makes sense. I don't want to explain this. It sounds fucking confusing.
You don't gotta know a whole bunch of Japanese history to know that, like, samurais were like once top of the class, and then once they were no longer really needed, they're like, what the fuck are you doing? What's your fucking point? What's your existence? And that was kind of the whole thing with dogs. Like, oh, this guy was a cat person, not a dog person. So that's kind of like the humor of it. So he exiled all the dogs over to this island. And because at one point in time, the dogs were like the dominant, pet in Japan. So, but no, I thought that was a great movie, and it was like, yeah, it was artsy as fuck.
Yeah, no doubt, but like in a good way.
Yeah, this is one of those cases where a Wes Anderson movie, like I said, I generally like Wes Anderson, but even sometimes the stuff seemed a little kind of pretentious, and this was a case where, oh no, this actually kind of worked out in his favor. So yeah, I like this movie.
Yeah, no,
so that's technically my number 8, but Upgrade was number 8. You know, the guy I mixed up. Yeah.
So what are we on? Now I'm confused. What are we on? 7? 7?
We're on 7. Yeah.
7 is Creed 2 for me. Which would be...
fuck, I forgot that one.
God, you missed out on all the big movies. That'd be
Rocky... It's not like I'm never going to fucking see him again.
Oh, yeah, it's not like the olden days. It's not like my grandpa, like, never saw Kong 1, so that's it. It's over. What's the point? Never go to the theater again. Not worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, no, Creed 2, I think what made that movie such a good one, too, is it did as... Like, when we walked out of Creed 1, and I was like, dude, the next one should be he fights Dolph Lundgren's son... And that's the story. That's it. We don't need anything else more. It's a continuation of like Rocky 4. And then they do that, and it's like, dude, they did exactly what you wanted them to do. I mean, the only thing that could have topped it off more is having Hulk Hogan in there. But man, it was just, and it was the funny thing too. That's one of those movies where, you know, most of the time you're always kind of cheering for Rocky in those movies, and you know, Creed's pretty much, you know, you're Rocky too, in a sense. But this is the point where it's like, I was like, no, dude, Dolph Lundgren's son. I felt so bad for this guy. You know, he's pretty much, they were exiled after Rocky 4 because he failed it, so they put him he's not in Russia anymore. They sent him to like Latvia or something like that there. They're like, go hang out with like fucking Dr. Doom and shit. And like, there he's out training. They're just like, you know, Dolph Lundgren's like working in like, I almost want to say a shipyard, but I know it's not a shipyard because that's a landlocked country. He's working in like some kind of like, from my memory, it was all gray and there was boxes and forklifts and he was probably in snow. One of those kind of areas, a shipping yard of some sort. And you know,
dogs fighting over a dead rabbit, probably.
Yep, exactly. And he's training his boy and so on. And this is kind of his way back in. You know, he's like, oh, I can get back into, you know, here we go. We got my son. You know, he's a great boxer. He's winning all these like, you know, lower grade circuits. You know, let's give to the Russian. We'll have this big battle. We'll have a comeback one. You know, and then Creed's just like, he's like, yeah, I win everything. Whatever. I got the title now. That's awesome. You know, he's at that point where at the same time, it's like compared to like when you see, you know, Dolph Lundgren's son fighting against Creed, you almost kind of go like, well, you know, Creed's got, you know, he ain't poor. He's got a rich mom. He's got Rocky Balboa, who I don't know whatever happened to Rocky's money. I've always wondered. That's like a mystery of like the Rocky movies. Like,
wasn't that just the whole plot of number 5? He like, Paulie like fucking lost all their money in number 5 or some shit. Wasn't that it?
I remember Paulie did something where he lost some money, but I don't remember him losing like all the money. But maybe that's what.
Well, they had to give the house, and I think in number 6 he was going back to living. He was like, "Oh, I got this restaurant. That's good enough."
Yeah, because that's pretty much what it's been ever since then. Yeah. But then you watch, and then they even just have like other like scenes where it's like, "Oh shit, they bring that character back," and so on. And as far, I mean, it's Rocky all in all, but like, I mean, I kid you not, like when I'm watching that, I'm like, dude, I feel bad because here's the thing: if Creed loses, it ain't that big of a deal. Oh, what? He gets a little bit of shame. He has to give his title up to the Russian. Who knows what happens to that poor boy if he loses in Russia? You know what I mean?
Gets sent to Siberia or some shit.
Yeah, exactly. If he's lucky. He gets sent to Siberia.
He'll be put to death by crushing.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's like really at the end of the day for like Creed, he lost? Oh, what's he gonna do? He gonna go, you know, sit in his, you know, his mansion bed and cry and, you know, be in a nice warm environment in sunny California where who knows what Dolph Lundgren's kid and his boy, they're gonna be like shipped off to be like, no, we sent you to the North Pole. You live with polar bears.
He has to go fight polar bears until he like once you defeat polar bear, then you fight Creed boy again.
Yeah, one of those ones. But no, Creed's definitely one of those ones to check out. Totally amazing movie. Love that one. I can't wait for Creed 3, and hopefully it brings back Hulk Hogan. That's all I have to say. Thunder Lips all the way.
All right. Well, I guess that puts us to number 6. My number 6 is Deadpool 2.
Oh, nice. I'm glad you put that one on the list, because that was another one, too. It's like, if we had a top 15, it would have been like right there. But I was like, because that, to me, is probably the best X-Men movie they've ever made, is Deadpool 2. Well,
Deadpool 2, to me, it's one of those things where I think I still like Deadpool 1 a little bit more, because here's the thing about this movie. It's like, it does some shit that sequels do that kind of annoy me, but it didn't. But everything else with the movie was done so well, I was able to forgive it. Like, I kind of wish they didn't kill off Vanessa right off the bat, because that's like a common sequel thing. Like, you know, this character that was a very big, prominent character in the first one.
Fuck it.
We're gonna off him in the first 10 minutes. Yeah, but to be fair though,
I will say though, it's definitely better than the other way you do it, where it's like we're gonna have the most happiest life ever, and then the sequel comes by, then it's like, oh, now the marital problems start happening, and what are they gonna do now to fix it? Like, that's the worst one. Like Kingsman 2, sadly.
I guess I'd rather kind of have him kill him, than have the whole, like, what's our marital situation? Because that's always another thing when sequels bother me. But I guess at the end of the day, oh yeah, Transformers 2, definitely. Well, that's also one of those things like that in the Sambo bots. Jesus. We don't read, man. Like, oh shit. How many drafts did that go through? Yeah. You could probably count on one hand. No, but anyway, what was I gonna say? This one right here, regardless of that, because it did do a lot of, it was kind of like, you know, your standard action movie plot / a little bit of time travel with Terminator 2, but at the end of the day, it's still just a fun action movie that did it so really well. Like, Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool really sells it. He's kind of he's the heart and soul of that whole movie, and he just makes it awesome. Everybody around him does a pretty good job. What's his name?
Cable is just so dialed in.
Josh Brolin is Cable. I kind of want to see. I'm looking forward to Deadpool 3, because I want the Cable and Deadpool movie. And this movie was kind of that, but it kind of happens more near the end. So Domino was a fantastic character.
Did a super good job.
And
on
even though the X-Force is just there just to all essentially die off, it's just one of those things you weren't expecting it to happen. I mean, it was one of the few times where they go out of their way, build up this whole team, and just for them to all die brutally. And they're just kind of more random characters anyway. Mm-hmm. And just the whole bit with Deadpool and Peter, he's just like, oh no, not Peter! Like, he's extra protective of Peter for some reason. No real explanation.
I was like, hey, he came here for like the job application. Of course you're getting the job. You don't have superpowers? That's okay.
That's all it took, yes. So it is a very straightforward action movie, but it's a straightforward action movie done really well. And I think the comedy and the action, and probably Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool with a lot of the surrounding characters, like his relationship with Colossus, I think that all kind of comes together to make a really solid movie.
Yeah, no, I feel that the Deadpool movies are only going to get... That's a perfect example of a series I think will only get better as time goes on. Mm-hmm. You know, I think Deadpool 3, like, once you just get these characters just really, like, dialed in and solid out, like, you know, because Cable itself was that to me was just such a magic moment watching it, because I felt like you watch Cable there. I mean, Deadpool's already, like, been done really good, but Cable's, like, one of those ones, like, him and Colossus, it's just, like, in those movies, it's just, like, there you go. That's how all your X-Men characters should feel like. You know what I mean? And what I like about Cable is, like, they treat him serious. He wasn't it was like, you keep Deadpool being the goofy character, but you can keep Cable as being a serious X-Men character. Totally worked. You know what I mean?
And the whole thing with, I'm glad for once one of these movies could keep it in and not throw it all out there. And they actually hid the Juggernaut. And they surprised me with the Juggernaut. Mm-hmm. That was something I was like, oh my god, they actually surprised me with something. Because so often movie trailers just throw everything out there.
Yeah, just like, might as well. Yeah, they just give away. They give you the short version of the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that one is my number 6, and it was just a really solid action movie. And some people might say, "What? Just a solid action movie? Is that far up on the list?" Like, yeah, if I like solid action movies, yeah, it is.
Well, I always say, like, when it comes down to movies, sometimes like the biggest factor is the rewatchability. Like, if I know I can throw a movie on much more times than maybe another movie that might be a little bit more. It might be like there might be those films that are like, it's technically a better made movie, better acting, you know, as far as all the jobs go, as you know, lighting and editing and all that stuff. That stuff's probably technically better. But at the end of the day, if something's a little bit more enjoyable, I'm just gonna say, you know what I mean. That's why Son-in-Law is one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time, just because I can throw it on so many times.
Well, that's what. Well, even Avengers 3 is probably a little bit more of a triumph than Deadpool 2. At the same time, though, I feel like, I could probably watch Deadpool 2 more than Avengers 3.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I kind of feel too. But my number 6 is just Isle of Dogs.
Oh, there you go.
So you know,
good movie. Covered that.
Great movie there. What's your number? 5?
5 is Hostiles.
Oh, Hostiles? I love that movie so
Yeah.
much.
With Christian Bale, and it's just you know, it was a Western. That's all I really knew going into it. I was just saying a Western. It had Christian Bale. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, I like Westerns. I like Christian Bale. Let's see this thing. And that's kind of most fun, just kind of going into a movie blind, not knowing what the whole story is, and realizing, okay, so this dude has to bring he was in the American Indian War, and he had to bring he had to bring this Indian back to his land over here, and he has bad history with this guy and his tribe, and his job is to keep them alive. And it's a very straightforward Western story, and I think it's even based on a book. But
well, they're doing a peace offering is what it is. It's pretty much the whole point of that movie is that this will look good in the newspapers, that the American army is pretty much taking this guy back to his original homeland to be buried. And that's the whole point of it. It's just like, it's literally just so you can write good press in the newspaper. So all these poor people have to go suffer for some guy's news article.
Yeah. Well, the other thing about it is, truth be told, I haven't seen this movie since the theaters, but I remember really liking it. It has not left my list since the beginning of last year.
Yeah, I know, because this is one of those like January movies, and when I watched it, I'm like, shit, this movie's going to be there on my list, no matter what. No matter what's going to be there. And I actually just rewatched it again recently because I went out and bought it. Because I was like, man, it's been a year. I gotta just give this one the old second try, and it's just so good. That's just a perfect example of it. It's dialed in. I mean, it's one of those movies that's kind of like, it's got action in it, but it's also very like, it's a heavy movie for some people, and it comes from what's his name, Scott.
Guy who did Crazy Heart and
Out of the Furnace.
Out of the Furnace.
He actually did Black Mass. I didn't know he did that one too. That's the other movie.
He did Black Mass?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and Out of the Furnace is one of those movies, just like, that movie was so good. That was super high up there on our list on, 4 years ago or whatever it was then. Like, that Christian Bale movie. And it's those are those kind of weird movies that, like, I feel like, even like Crazy Heart, that's the kind of movies that people watch and they go, you get like mixed reactions. Some people watch and go, oh my God, that movie was so hard and so heavy and so dramatic. I don't think I could ever watch that again. Or like, I can watch some of those movies, like I could throw Out of the Furnace on like any old day. And it's just like, I don't know what it is. I got this like weird enjoyment of it. It's like such like, it's that weird thing where it's kind of got maybe downer moments in it, but for some reason it gives me more of like an uplifting feel. Like a Pearl Jam song. You know what I mean?
Very much like the song in that movie.
Yeah.
Well, that's like...
That's how I feel. It's like, it captures that body. And that's how I feel like even Hostiles is. It's one of those movies where it's just like, nothing really good happens. This movie tells me that if you're out in the West in the 1800s, and you're in the middle of the woods, and you run across somebody else, it's never good. Nothing good's gonna come from running into somebody else out there. It's all bad. They're either gonna try to murder you, try to rob you, or try to rape you, or all three. It doesn't matter what happens, that's what's going down. So you better be...
Doesn't matter which order.
You better be well defended, you know what I mean? Doesn't matter who it is either.
Yeah, in that movie... Well, plus the whole... Because, you can probably guess as time goes on, the Native American guy as well as the Union soldiers are going to start to get along and start to come together. And it moves at a logical pace. It doesn't happen too slowly, nor does it happen too quick. It's at a logical pace, and they kind of get there in a way of like... At some point, he's like, fuck these guys. He just like,
that's the first thing he does. He's like, we're out of fucking town now. Put the fucking chains on the engine and take the braids out of the woman's hair. Why? It pisses me off. I don't know why. Christian fucking Bale. Don't you dare fucking question me and my mustache.
And then there's the whole part where he even has what was it? There's like one of them, like at this point something happens where I don't remember what it was exactly. It was a small thing that made him go like, okay, well we can take the chains off them, but don't stand too fucking close to me. And then moving forward,
well, that's the part when like the first time they get attacked by the Comanches.
But then what ends up happening is at the same time where like they kidnap the woman.
No, that's not the Comanches. That's just a bunch of trapper dudes. No, when the Comanches show up and they show up and they shoot like one of the guys, and then the black guy gets shot in the shoulder right then and there. That's when he decides he's like, oh okay, well because then he sees the Indian guy still like kill two of those guys with being chained up and everything. And one guy gets ran over, and the other guy just strangles one of the Comanches.
And then from there, then he says, like, okay, well, they take the chains off. But then at some point, they're moving forward. The woman get kidnapped. And he has that whole moment where he's all like, we're doing this my way. And the Native American guy's like, no, we're doing it my way. He's like, I'm the leader. You're like, that's my daughter and that's my wife or whatever. He's like, all right, You know, it's just one of those moments. It's a logical build-up, and they're never to the point where they're hugging and crying and holding each other, but it's a logical build-up to how they get to where they're at. There is that one point, though, where the lady's carrying her dead baby for a couple of days. Like, you know that shit's dead, right?
Well, it takes her a while to realize that, too. It's like, she doesn't notice that right off the bat. It's...
Well, no, you know, because even when they find her, I thought she was still holding the baby for a minute.
Well, she is, because when they find that burnt house and they go down there and they're like, I wonder what that is. Like, oh, shit. You know, and then it's like, Christian Bale walks in, he's like, oh, I see what's going on here. Here's a lady holding her dead baby, and then her $2 fucking just, like, covered on a, you know, it's like, that's fucking creepy. Like, that's not if you stumbled into that and you were by yourself, you would not be.
Oh, we're good.
Yeah, you know, it's so,
well,
when you got your cavalry men with you, it's kind of like, whew. But it's just imagine stumbling into that in the middle of the night. that's a just Silent Hill movie starting off.
Yes, or just middle of the day, just rolls in, just having some good old Lone Ranger song. Just walks in there, sees that lady just in a rocking chair with her dead baby, 2 kids like with shit over them, like, ma'am. Then all of a sudden the Lone Ranger song picks up, just going the other way.
Yeah, exactly. You know. But it's just one of those ones where it's like, you see that, but then you see almost a progression for her character, too. She goes from like, oh, okay, she's just this normal, like, intelligent, like, housewife lady and so on. Then, boom, after her whole family's destroyed, she goes from almost being, like, sort of like a crazy person to getting kind of back to normal to almost then, you know, fighting for her own justice and being able to, like, handle it and have this progression going on.
Yeah, so that one's that was a really good movie, and I saw that all the way back in January last year, and here we are January this year, and still there.
Well, these are the perfect example. I always call these are the movies that prove that, like, January movies, like, because everybody always says like, oh, January's the crap month for movies. I'm like, fuck you. Sometimes I see some of the best movies in January. Like, I almost wanted to say this actually might have been February beginning, but whatever. That's still almost January. It was like John Wick 2, I think, last year. And it's like, that was a perfect example of like, dude, there's a fucking amazing movie in that time period. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know what it is. Like, there's that stigma. They always say January is just not a good time for movies. Hostiles proves that 100% wrong.
You look long enough. The thing is, a lot of studios, for a period of time, they would just put out bullshit in January. But if you look long enough, you could find a couple of good movies that come out in January. It's just not the period where you get... Now February is becoming this period for, like, that cool, edgy genre movie that might be rated R, sometimes PG-13 because of Black Panther. But now that's when Kingsman came out, that's when Deadpool came out.
I thought Kingsman came out in the summertime, but maybe I'm wrong.
The first Kingsman, I think, came out in February, I think.
Yeah, you're right, it did, I remember.
First John Wick, Kingsman, Deadpool, even though this one's PG-13, Black Panther. So it kind of came time for the cool... different kind of genre movie to come out around then. So
well, I think it's a cheaper time period to release a movie because you know what I mean. Like generally, nobody's
less risk.
Yeah, there's not as much risk. You know what I mean? You're not
going up against Star Wars or something.
Yeah, it's not like some of these other movies where it's like, you know, sometimes there's certain movies it's like, why did you release going against you knew this movie was coming out? And it's always kind of goofy when you hear like, oh, we didn't make as much money as we thought. I'm like, well, shit, I could have told you that. Who the hell did you go and ask? Like, I could have. I saw that. Like, I saw what day it was coming out. We all know what somebody's seeing that day. They ain't seeing your movie. I'm just going to say it.
I'll say this. Even though, like, I want the movies I like to do good, you get people who just like to rub in people's face, the movie didn't do so good the second week, as if it's a fucking football game.
Well, that's like, they literally make like that, like,
us and them kind of.
Well, no, there's literally a program now that's pretty much just like fantasy football, but it's fantasy movie league stuff. So it reminds me, it's like totally
fucking nerds. When I hear that shit, I'm like, you fucking nerds.
You bet on like which movies are gonna succeed, and which I don't know how you fucking do it, but I'm just assuming that's what it is. Like my movie's better than your movie because I made more money. Yeah.
I mean, that in itself can be that in itself can be an interesting like concept for a movie. Somebody in someone in the tech industry is trying to sabotage how movies do via advertising or something like that, or even changing ticket sales or something. That in itself sounds like it could be an interesting movie, but in real life, the idea of like doing fantasy football for movies, like it's like, why do I give a shit what these fucking billionaire companies make? And like, I mean, I want the movie I like to do good because I want to see more of that director or more of that particular series. Yeah. But it's not like I'm not like broken heart. Like I had a friend who was so like he hated the Star Wars movies, and he kept saying Star Wars is down this week. Like I don't give a shit.
Yeah, it's just like, you know,
is this all you got to fucking do?
Yeah, shit. Like what's wrong with you? Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, Hostiles 5.
Hostiles, pure amazing. So am I not my 5 or is it your 5? No, you just did 5.
That was my 5.
Okay, well my 5 is Constantine.
Oh yeah, that one was awesome.
The animated Constantine movie, which really was one of those ones. What's it called? City of Demons. What was it called?
City of Demons. Yeah, which is kind of what I think which really looking at it, think about that movie and the Constantine we got, because the live action Constantine movie, even though it's a good movie, it doesn't feel like Constantine. Mm-hmm. Regardless of that, because that movie takes place in LA, I almost feel like you could have made this movie in place of that and put it in live action, just because of the. It takes place in LA, and you already get a sense of this dude's been doing this for a while. They give you a quick, to the point, like backstory.
Yeah, they catch you up real quick, or they have a couple moments where it actually goes back in time and shows like Constantine's like kind of little steps up, bringing up his best buddy and everything too.
Mm-hmm.
But no, this is one of those ones where it's like not only is it just an awesome Constantine story, and just goes to show that you can have this sweet like demon interaction and have this guy traveling around kind of solving, you know, murder mysteries based on it, you know, and he's got his buddy and his daughter's been kind of trapped by a demon, so he's going to save her, and you know that's just how it is. And just the gore and the violence that it has in it, and just the creepiness tone with the slight like the Constantine humor that like I deal with this on a Tuesday, so it's not that big of a deal, you know, his attitude and keeping with, you know, because that's what it is. It's like, you know, the Keanu Reeves, you know, Constantine movie, as far as just you just take it as a movie, it's great. It's just a movie, it's great. You know, it's missing sort of like the Constantine, like, you know, some of the elements too there. You know, I mean, he's a little bit more clean cut. Doesn't have that like, you know, it's not like he's smoking with a 5 o'clock shadow everywhere he goes and wearing the same trench coat that you know he's probably not changed out in like weeks, if not for God knows how long. But yeah, that Constantine movie, like that to me proved like, here's an example of doing a DCU movie. You don't have to have Batman, Justice League, Teen Titans. You know what I mean? It's not being sold with any of the other big characters, because really at the end of the day, Constantine's not a big character at all. That's like a C-list character as far as like DC goes, as far as selling it to the major public at the end of the day. You know what I mean? That's like I feel like a tough character sell. I mean, granted, he did have one of the first movies as far as like the modern age of superheroes goes, but beyond that, a lot of people just don't really know who John Constantine is, you know, and trying to sell demon stuff's always a tough one. So if you get pretty much this DCU animated movie in here that goes full R, treats Constantine exactly how it should be, you know what I mean, has all the elements in there, and then just goes the distance to places you didn't think would go, that to me is like, oh dude, if you just did this in live action, you would have a hit on your hands.
Yeah, and this was it didn't make my top 10, but it definitely is a really good Constantine story. It feels like Constantine, because I'll be honest, I haven't really read much solo Constantine, but I did read some Dark Justice League for a little while, which he's in. Mm-hmm. And it has that whole noir vibe, while still having like, yeah, it's dark, it's very bleak, but there's just a tad bit of humor, which makes it not seeming so dour and so depressing all the time. Yeah,
well, that's the thing. It's like it's balanced out. It's like you can have this really cool, dark, you know, imagery, and then he just has his kind of like almost like his Ash and the Evil Dead type comments along the way. And yeah, that's the other thing too. Is like the thing about Constantine is like I have a couple Constantine books, and that's it. I'm not really an expert at all on him, but I'm always kind of interested. It's like that's like the perfect example. Like some of those ones, like I might not, you know, because you can only get so many comics in life. So, you know, you're only going to get like whatever you can get. And a lot of times, you know, somebody like Batman always just kind of hit you. I know you want to get that Constantine book, but new Batman just came out. What are you doing? Like, shit, look at that fucking
exactly.
You know, so there's always that. But you make a movie or something, that's a little bit easier to kind of jump yourself into. And that Constantine one it really just proves, like, once again, how good the DCU is when it comes to these animated films and just getting them so dialed in. And then also just getting the guy who played Constantine in the TV show to come back and once again play again, who's also in the Justice League Dark one. It's like, so good. So cool. One of those ones, like, it's a perfect example of a movie that anybody who's, like, kind of anti-superheroes, I mean, you don't need to, like, I guess, bend their arm backwards to show them it, but, like, you know, people that just kind of go, oh, I don't like cartoons and I hate superheroes and all this kind of stuff. Mostly this is the Constantine's ones, like, show them this one. See what they think after that.
Yeah, this will shut them the fuck up.
Yeah.
They might even like turn it off. Like, oh, it's too much for me. It's just too violent. I can see that shit happening. The part when you have the guy playing the piano and there's like bats flying out his asshole.
Yeah, that part is just amazing. I don't know. It's like what it is. Just small stuff like that. Like, I guess it's the progression because it's really, if you think about it, it all progresses from Batman the Animated Series in the sense, and then you see that it's like where we got to a guy with bats flying out of his butthole.
It all started with Bruce Timm.
Yeah, Bruce Timm ended up with like a guy, just right there on stage. Nobody questions it either. That's the thing. I love the non-questioning of it. Just there, background piece. But no, that movie's so good.
All right. Well, I guess that puts us at our number 4. We're just blazing through these. My number 4 is mid-90s.
Oh, that's an interesting one to have this high up. That movie, I really enjoyed it, and I didn't know if it was going to be on my list, because I literally went out and just physically bought it, because there was a point where it's like, oh shit, we're going to do this podcast real soon. I got to catch up on a couple movies. There's not enough time to rent them. It just was like, okay, I'm going to buy a couple ones here, and mid-90s was one of the ones I got. And it was one of those movies, I really did enjoy it. That movie so takes you back to 90s. Though I'm kind of questionable, what's this mid-90s? In my head, I want to say it's 1996, but then I look at the controllers there, and he's playing PlayStation when they're playing Twisted Metal, and I think they're playing Twisted Metal 2. It goes by so fast, but I want to say that's the one it is. But one of the kids is holding a DualShock. Well, I don't know if it's the DualShock. It could be just that there was a weird controller they made that had both the joysticks without the rumble pack in it that came in 97. So by that standard, the movie could be 97.
Could be 97 because
that was the part went through my brain for 10 minutes when I was sitting there watching the movie. I'm like, well, fuck, what movie is this movie? At first I started off, they got Super Nintendo and shit, and then okay.
Well, think back in that time. That was still a period where you could have a PlayStation, but you'd still be playing your old Nintendo just because you didn't really have, maybe that was your only 2 games for the PlayStation. So you'd really hold on to shit back then. So I could totally see that being the case.
Yeah, that part there, because at that time period, retro gaming was always a thing. I don't think unless you were one of those, there was those kids that always traded in their systems where they'd be like, oh yeah, the Dreamcast was coming out, so I have to turn in my Sega Saturn. I was like, the fuck are you doing? What are you, crazy? Just giving up on the old system, you know what I mean? That to me was always a weird thing.
Yeah. So this right here, though, the only thing that really kind of took me out of it, very briefly, and I understand why they did it, but it was at some point he's wearing a Street Fighter 2 shirt, and I know those weren't super common or super readily available. Maybe they were back then, but
he is in LA, so there's probably a higher chance than anywhere else that you could have found that.
But maybe it was a little bit more. It wasn't super common still back in that time. But regardless, anyway, this movie right here. This was a movie that's it's the Jonah Hill directed movie that he made that just about kids skateboarding. And this is also one of those movies you talked about how two very different types of movies. Mandy felt like a movie you could just go out and you'd film some shit in the woods with your friends. This seems kind of the more realistic version because it's God, this is it's Jonah Hill. The most expensive part of this movie is probably first off, probably finding professional skateboarders for some of the scenes. Beyond that, the mom is the lady from Fantastic Beasts. Everything else is I'd never seen any of these people in anything before.
Well, and then the thing too, really the only thing that would make that hard is just making everything period piece at the end of the day. Which probably isn't the hardest thing too, because probably on a budget you could go, well shit, I just go buy a bunch of used cars for $500 a piece, and there's our 90s vehicles, or
just kind of keep it to skate parts, barely show cars, all that kind of shit.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the other thing that really sold me on the movie. I remember when I first saw a trailer, is it's shot in full screen. I think that's so cool because that's one of those weird things that there's going to be somebody return this movie back to Walmart being like, oh, I think the movie's broken. It wasn't in widescreen. Didn't fit my TV. There's going to be some asshole doing that. But I love that it's shot in full screen because right there, that's such a small thing you do to totally make it feel like you're in the 90s right then and there. You know what I mean? If you do that with any type of movie where you shoot it like that, and it's it has that feel of almost these kids were shooting the movie on their handy cams. And then the other thing it tops off too is they're literally using the Sony. There's that one kid that's in the movie who they make him out kind of he's kind of like the dumb kid, but he's the filmmaker kid. The friends. He's got the Sony Handycam that we shot all our high school movies with. And I'm like, oh, there's that old Sony Handycam.
There's that back when that thing would have been brand new and super shiny.
Yeah, because when we had them, they were always a little bit used and beat up, but still.
But the whole thing with that movie is it feels very relatable, and even though I didn't grow up in LA skateboarding, just kind of the social awkwardness of that time of when you're bridging from being a little kid to going into a teenager, it definitely seemed pretty relatable. As far as that aspect of like, the first time you're kind of venturing out and hanging out with people outside your usual group of friends. And then there's the other thing the movie does, which is, because usually a movie like this does the morality of it. It's one of those things like, okay, these friends are good for you, don't listen to your mom, or these friends are bad for you, listen to your mom. Where this one kind of goes right down the middle, where it's like you see the kids he's hanging out with the exception of there's the black kid.
He's the only good influence.
Riley. Like Riley, whatever. I think it was Riley or Ridley. It was something like that.
Rails like the only... like the fucking Sonic the Hedgehog character. We're like, who's he? He's Rails
with a Z. With a Z.
Yeah. He's always grinding Rails.
Someone's OC character you could find on DeviantArt. Yeah. Look up Rails the Hedgehog, or you also might get a porno. Who knows? Anyway, so what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so. That character, he's like the only one that's a positive influence because, you got the one friend, because they're all young. The thing about this movie is, even though everyone's kind of, they're all young and they're all kind of like dumb in some way, but that you don't hate them for, because they're just kids at the end of the day. But to him, they seem like adults. They seem like adults with their shit together. And there's the one kid, Shitfuck, who you can see, he's probably a decent guy and he's fun to hang out with, but he's one of those guys who just keeps on drinking and driving, and he just wants to party and fuck around all the time. He doesn't take it seriously. And you have the one kid, Riley, who is taking it very seriously, wants to get out of the hood and all that. So he's just like, well, I'm using this as a chance to move forward. And then once he embarrasses him, he's like, dude, you're fucking this up for me. And that causes, tension between the two of them. So it's one of those things of like, it's almost going back to the main character. I forgot the main character, his name, but it's going to this point of like, okay, these guys can be true friends and they could be good guys, but it doesn't mean you need to pull everything you like or everything you want to be from them, because you still need to keep some room and form your own personality and form who you want to be. And that's what I liked about this movie, is it wasn't like too one-sided, like, because mom's like, you stay away from those boys, where, part of me is like, I kind of get why she's saying that. As a mom who sees her kid drinking for the first time, getting all fucked up, especially since he has that really weird, abusive brother.
Yeah, he's got that brother who, like, in the 90s, like, I think we all knew at least one of those kind of kids like that, who had, like, almost, it felt like they had, like, this pent-up, like, gay rage, is almost like how you would describe it, because they would almost get so violent, but they'd almost get real close, too, and you'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with this kid?
Well, he's one of those things when you first see him, because it's one of those things. He has this very abusive brother. Like the opening shot of the movie is just this hallway, and you see this little kid slamming against the wall. The big brother just beating the shit out of this kid, like, stay out of my room! Stay out of my room! And it's one of those things, like, sometimes we got fucked up sense of humor. Sometimes we might see that, we might laugh, but the way they shot it and the way they show it in this movie, it's almost kind of like this impending, like, you kind of fear for the kid whenever he did something to piss off his brother, really. Yeah. And the way it's shot, the way it looks, and the brother's kind of a piece of shit, but then you kind of realize that, like, he's this guy that he fears, and he, in some way, also kind of idolizes him, but after hanging out with these guys, he realizes that his brother's just a fucking nerd, and he can't even, the only reason he beats up on him is because he can't beat up on anybody else. Yeah. And then out of that, the little brother starts to go further than him, and that just causes more problems. And I won't spoil the whole movie, because this is one of those movies, it's generally people hanging out. Barely anything really happens.
It's total hangout movie.
Like, barely anything in the movie happens, but it's not a bad thing. It all kind of like, they'll be hanging out, little things happen, it's kind of peppered with little moments that kind of build up, and then at the very end, it all kind of comes tumbling down at once. But, it's definitely worth seeing, and I recommend it. It's my number 4.
Yeah, no, this movie is one of those ones. There is a lot of neat stuff to it, and just, like, especially I think if you are, like, the 90s kid, it totally takes you back, because it's one of those ones, like, I look at those kids, I'm like, I knew exactly who those kids were, like, in school. Like, I could point out to, like, which group that was, and, it's like, you could totally relate to who they were. That wasn't like my specific friends, you know what I mean? But like, I could totally get it. And just like all the nuances of just different things there, and just, the small things of almost having takes you to like almost like a time trip, but without doing the thing like, I mean, other than like the Street Fighter t-shirt, which is not really a big deal. I mean, I'm fine with Street Fighter t-shirts, but it doesn't do the thing like when it comes down to like, you know, having the relatable items and just kind of like showcasing all this stuff. Like, see, remember 97? Remember 97? 97? It doesn't do any of that. It just kind of feels like you just kind of step back in time to like a home video or something like that. And I mean, even like the ending, like, I mean, it does not really spoil it, but like, there's this kind of cool way that the filmmaker kid in the movie, he's like the goof and he doesn't really say anything. For some reason, for the guy being the filmmaker guy, he seems like the most retarded of them all, but whatever. I was like, I felt like I found some like offense to that right there. I was like, is that supposed to be the guy?
He would just be the He was just supposed to be the socially awkward guy. I think that's what it is. Because he has talents, but it's not social shit. It's more of like, oh, he's good at this stuff over here, and I think that was just kind of the way they portray him, you know?
Yeah, but like the way that it kind of ends, like not like the ending, but like the kind of final before you get the credits. Like he kind of goes like, "Hey, dudes, I made this video," and it's like because he's always shooting the whole time, and doesn't really kind of say too much about it. He's just either shooting them skateboarding. He doesn't skateboard himself, I don't really think, or you know. He's just, you know, shooting him, talking, all this stuff. And then he makes this cool little video at the very end that just feels like those old school, like, you know, skateboard videos that, you know, I never had, but everybody else kind of seemed to have them when they were popular. And I just remember them from, like, Tony Hawk. You would, like, unlock them in, like, those games and so on. But he makes a video like that of him and his friends just hanging out, skateboarding, having a good time. It's got the fisheye lens on it, so it really gives you that feel there. And that right there is just, that's so cool in itself.
Yeah. That was just, I'm going back because I don't want to stay hung up on this too much. The other thing, just a lot of the small weird things they would do about the Big Brother. Like the Big Brother had that weird thing. He was always drinking orange juice, like really just fucking weird shit.
Like out of the fucking carton?
Well, I thought was actually in like a very dramatic moment where he and the little brother and the Big Brother go at it. In that moment, I like how after, you know, all this shit goes bad, he takes the orange juice and he runs. I'm going to take the thing you love the most.
Yeah, I know. It's a weird dynamic, but it's like you always saw those kind of like, there's always those people you knew that had those either like, whether they had either a brotherly relationship like that and or like sometimes just some people have that kind of weird relationship with not, maybe they weren't even like friends, but just different chums in school. And they just had that weird, violent relationship. You just don't even know how you could explain it. You know what I mean? Because I just remember like even like when me and Kyle like transferred schools and we went to another one, I remember people were like, "You guys don't hit each other?" And we're like, "No." Like, what, you guys hit each other and stuff? Like, yeah, we hit each other all the time. It's what do we do? It's like, that's fucking weird.
Yeah.
Like, shit, you don't got some self-respect for your friend? Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, this is how we say hi.
Yeah. Like, oh, he clearly doesn't like it. No, he's going to take it like a bitch. That's what he's going to do.
This is how I say hi back.
Yeah, like one of those ones. But no, mid-90s was a cool one. The only reason I think I didn't put it on my top 10 list, it probably would have been a top 15 one, is I feel like I don't know if that's one of those movies I'd throw on just all the time. That's the only reason I kind of minus it back because of that. Because it is one of those ones where I wasn't too sure if I was going into a movie that was going to be more of a drama or more of a comedy. And it definitely leans more into the drama, which I think gives it a little bit more of the realisticness. But maybe if it leaned a little bit farther comedy, it'd probably have a little bit more rewatchability, I guess. I don't know.
I think for me, it made me really want to make something when I walked out of it. And a lot of times that in itself is something that kind of puts it higher up for me. It also seems like, what the fuck's that noise?
Oh, I was drinking my shake.
Okay. It's one of those things like when if a movie itself kind of makes me want to like make something, that itself kind of pushes it a little higher for me. On top of that, I thought, what else was I going to say?
No, I don't know. I just haven't
seen something like that in a while.
Whenever they give you that feeling, there's something about that. Like that's like Willow Creek was like that for me. I felt like it's one of those movies that like I couldn't just sell that movie to anybody. You know what I mean? But when I watched it, I was like, oh fuck! It gives you that anything is possible feeling. And mid-90s definitely has that too.
Like I feel like it's also something I could probably just put on in the background while I work on something. You know. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I really like that one, so that's number 4 for me.
Okay, my number 4 is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Sorry, I got staticky.
My number 4 is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
I fucking love that movie. That thing... Good?
Well, I was just going to say, this is the movie that proves exactly why Disney should not own all of Marvel. That's how I felt. When I walked out of that movie, I'm like, damn it, this is the exact reason why. For all those stupid like Marvel fucks out there who just want Disney to own it all because they just don't know any better. This right here proves it. Like sometimes there's something to be said about having multiple companies have stuff. Because here's the thing, you might get a Venom this year, or last year, I guess by now, but you also get something like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse that is literally the best Spider-Man movie ever made. I kid you not.
I agree with you. This is the best Spider-Man.
Like, I knew right from there. It's like, nope, this is Spider-Man 100%. This is what I've been wanting. The whole idea of also having multiple universes in there, that totally works. When you got Beer Gut Spider-Man, like, Beer Gut Peter Parker, that's like the best part of that movie. And he's wearing the sweatpants too, and he just comes from a world where like shit kind of didn't really work out. And Mary Jane like left him, and he said fuck it. And it doesn't show him drinking, but you know for a fact he was like fucking drinking and shit, and like eating pizza and just like hanging out in his apartment and just let himself go to waste.
Well, the thing about this movie is, you're right, it totally is the best Spider-Man movie made. And the thing about that is, truth be told, you needed probably at least 4 more movies. I mean, now I think this is technically the 7th or the 8th, but I think you needed at least 4 movies before this one came out for it to really mean something. That being said, though, this is like the best one just because it totally understood Spider-Man. Because even though Sam Raimi understood Spider-Man, he had to stop and explain Spider-Man to people who weren't used to Spider-Man, or he had to try and find and create a new foundation for superhero movies and try to present it in a new in a new way, where Amazing Spider-Man was trying to do this thing where it was trying to lay down and have its own universe just of spider characters. And then there's also the Marvel Spider-Man, which is they're trying to incorporate him into their cinematic universe. And it was just interesting to see one like, no, we're just focusing on Spider-Man and Spider-Man related things, but we're not going to shy away from the comic bookness of it, not by any means. We're actually going to use that to its effect in its storytelling and even try and make it look more like a comic book than an actual movie.
Exactly. And just the thing too, it's like you get like the Miles Morales origin story, so you still get that, but the fact that you already have the other Spider-Man established, Peter Parker, in there, and then you kill Spider-Man right off the very beginning. Like, you know, it's like it works because you got the multiple universes, but you think about it, that Spider-Man doesn't come back to life. That Spider-Man's dead. That's it. That's the
thing. That was kind of a good way to tell, because in Ultimate Spider-Man, it was like teenage Spider-Man who died, and then Miles Morales came in and took his place. Where this is, I thought that was an interesting way to do it, where you take that story beat, not the whole thing, but the story beat of, oh, this is Spider-Man, you know him, and then he dies, and then it's Miles Morales has to take over. But you still get the Spider-Man storyline. He's still bringing all these other offbeat characters, like Spider-Ham. Like Spider-Noir was one that, like, when I first heard about this
Nicolas
movie,
Cage,
maybe we'll have
coming back.
Nicolas Cage again. Here's the funny thing, because my girlfriend, she really does not like Nicolas Cage that much.
I don't know what it is about some people not liking Nicolas Cage.
She's not a fan of him, but regardless, she was like, okay, I'm not gonna lie, he was pretty good in that movie, and his character was pretty funny. So I like how, and he kind of does that whole I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on his name. Humphrey Bogart kind of voice, says a lot of those kind of lines, and this movie, regardless of that character, it's just one of those things where I feel like like I said earlier, you need a few Spider-Man movies to make this movie.
Oh yeah, because if this was the first Spider-Man movie that just kind of came out, people would be like, the fuck is this? Probably.
But regardless of that, this was still the best one. I mean, this had 6 villains in it, and it did not feel overcrowded. And some people said, well, you didn't get a chance to know all those villains. I don't need to know all the villains.
I already know who they are.
I don't need to know all the villains. We already got so many characters in this thing. Kingpin, that was probably one of the best versions of Kingpin I've seen out of the comic books.
The only thing I'll say about Kingpin, though, is he had, like, I will say his look was a little bit goofy.
His look was weird.
Yeah,
his character.
He felt like he stepped out of, like, Despicable Me, like he was related to, like, one of those main characters. Like, I don't know what it was. It felt like, here's your third cousin, Kingpin.
The weird hunchback thing. I mean, his character-wise. Character-wise, he was
totally dialed in, but that was the only, I just felt like his animation style just didn't match with anything else in the movie. That was the only thing I thought was kind of weird. And then, I mean, it was kind of interesting. They do the thing where, like, when he's up in, like, a close shot, you just see his head, like Iron Man almost, and it's like his body's so big that it kind of blocks the rest of the screen. But for the most part, I felt like he looked a little bit kind of cartoony and goofy. Beyond that, though, he was fine. But yeah, he did have a little bit of a uncanny look. Let's just say that.
Yeah, he like his look was a little weird. I'm assuming that's based on a particular design of him that maybe from somewhere in the 80s, if I had to guess. But I liked that, you know, they finally did a Kingpin movie, and on top of that, his character was interesting. He wasn't, because I like Vincent D'Onofrio, but he's very much like I am Wilson Fisk, and I am very serious all the time. And when I'm mad, I smash, you know. But this one, he was just like, I liked how he was like a New Yorker from the Bronx who worked his way up to the top, and now he owns everything. And then you had the Prowler, you had Scorpion. I'm so glad they surprised me with a girl version of Otto Octavius. That was awesome, right?
Yeah,
there.
that was cool, and that worked out really well. Because I think that twist, what makes it kind of nice is for anybody who wouldn't expect that, is the fact that like no general audience member is going to go in there expecting that to be Doc Ock. You know what I mean? Because most people they would never go like, well, he doesn't have a bowl cut, so it can't be Doc Ock. You know what I mean? That's the clear giveaway.
And you had Tombstone. I mean, Tombstone's never been like a huge character, and he's more of a crime lord than a bodyguard. But still, you had fucking Tombstone.
Well, you had that, and then I'll even say this, like, you know, it's got the Spider Ham in there, and that's the point where the movie could almost get a little bit hammy. And ironically, like, I think they do it really good, is he only has like a couple lines, and I think that was the smartest thing to do, is keep that character to being just such a minimal. Don't make him like, because I was kind of afraid they were going to try to Rocket Raccoon him, and it would almost take away from this kind of nice, serious movie you have, and then all of a sudden you got this goofy character there, but he's used so sparingly that I think it works out properly.
And he even has, even though he's the silly, fun character, he has one of the most serious lines in the movie. He says, toughest part about this job is you can't save everybody.
Yeah. So
I
was just gonna say they just keep that going there.
And Aunt May, they do a thing with Aunt May which is fantastic, which is where they, you know, because we've seen Aunt May a lot. We've seen her as the old lady who's about to die at any moment, and then we've also seen her as like, okay, she's kind of young, more fun lady, young, fun, hot aunt, whatever. But then this one shows her as like, okay, yeah, she's older, but she's been doing this for a little while, and she's like Peter Parker's Alfred, or like his Q. And that scene when Morales goes back to her and she just has that look, just like, took you long enough, like that right there. It's just like, I've always kind of want to see Aunt May a little bit more like that. Kind of like,
that's always been sort of my problem with a lot of those other Spider-Man things, is I don't like how Aunt May is always like, Peter Parker just always keeps her in the dark on that. I'm like, that's the stupidest thing ever. No, you should let Aunt May know what's going on. Like, that's not the person you lied to, you know what I mean?
And the fact that she wasn't just fucking helpless or useless. The idea that she was out there helping, and then even when they go down into the spider cave or whatever, you even saw these other nods and references to different Spider-Man things from the history of it. And this was just, you know, I can't say enough. This is definitely my favorite Spider-Man movie right here. And go into what you said for a second. And part of me agrees with you about the whole, this is why why Disney shouldn't have everything. But that being said, I don't think Sony is really that good about it. I think
I don't think Sony is, but I think
that they were smart enough to hire somebody that was, though, because Sony makes some really stupid decisions. But I don't know if this, regardless, though, if Sony wasn't desperate and they didn't get, you know, you guys did a good job with the Claudia with the Chance of Meatball movie, and we saw you guys been killing it with Lego. You please come back and do something for us? All right, we'll produce it and we'll write it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, well, because that's the thing, though. It's like, yeah, granted, I'm not saying that Sony is like, oh, man, Sony always knocks it out of the park. No. So Sony is kind of like, they trip over their own feet all the time with that kind of stuff. Why? I don't know why. It's Sony. You'd think they'd have it a little bit more dialed in than anybody else, but
I just don't think we need a Kraven the Hunter movie, which is what they're apparently trying to make. They're trying to make a Spider-Man universe series without Spider-Man.
See, that's kind of stupid in my opinion. And it's just like one of those ones there. But the thing is if Disney owned it all, you wouldn't get something like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I don't think that to me, it doesn't have a Disney feel to like their style. It has a very this is totally an Attitude Era different, you know, take. This is really like almost like a Hail Mary of a Spider-Man movie. This is like when you get to the very end, you're like, fuck it, this Spider-Man or no Spider-Man. Okay, let's do this Spider-Man then.
This is something that doesn't feel like it would have, I don't know, it feels like, this feels kind of like a more successful, I mean, did this movie do good at the box office?
I think it did do pretty well, because it was there for like months. I mean, this movie was still hanging out like in the beginning of January.
I was in town on the 12th, and it was still in theaters then when I went to go see The Mule. So I think that, yeah. So this movie probably had to do decent. And then it's clearly made by people who really understand the character. And the reason I'm saying this, and a lot of times people say this shit, and I'm like, well, that really doesn't mean nothing because I don't know you that well. But, you know, I'm a huge diehard comic book fan / Spider-Man fan. I fucking love this movie, and I took my girlfriend to see it, and she doesn't hate or dislike comic book stuff, but she was never really into it regardless. Mm-hmm. This movie made her cry a few times, and she really liked it a lot. So,
well, that's the thing is, this movie has like good, real moments in there, and there's just emotion, and it's got a sweet soundtrack to back it up with. It kind of just fires off like on every cylinder.
Well, even like the whole thing with Miles and his uncle, like that whole plot line was just great,
amazing.
And some people were even complaining about like, and now we're gonna try and do this whole thing without spoiling too much of the movies here, but. That whole thing right there was with Miles and his uncle. I heard some people saying, yeah, well, you know, it was just kind of 2 scenes, and I felt like I could have needed to see more of him. Like, well, no, I think those 2 scenes, how much is going on in that movie, those 2 scenes really get that across well enough. You know, it's like, and those 2 scenes are well enough written to where it's like, no, I get it. You don't need to have them keep on going back to illustrate how good of friends they are.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? I think I got that so well. Like, when that kind of twist came around, I was like, oh, that is actually a really cool way to go about it. That's the thing is, this movie was just always surprising. You know, and it's just like all the characters were great in it. Like, that uncle character I thought was awesome. I thought that was the perfect way to kind of balance it with like Miles' parents, you know, but his dad being the police officer and his mom being the nurse and so on. And then there's also the other Spider-Man character we forgot to mention. There's also the Japanese anime chick from like 3000 AD or whatever, which
Penny Parker,
which she actually works really well too in it. Like, you know, that feels like another character that could, you know, in the wrong hands, could go the wrong direction, but like I felt like, nope, that character was actually once again really dialed in for this movie.
And this movie does have a lot of comedy. I think you'd almost call it an action comedy, but it's really done.
Well, it's
very well.
I mean, Spider-Man always feels sort of in the action comedy. I mean, he's like Deadpool, but without having all like the constant like
swearing,
the swearing and like the talking to the camera, like kind of almost like the breaking the fourth wall stuff. That's about the only kind of difference. I mean, I guess he talks to the audience, I guess you sort of say, but I feel like he's more just talking to himself.
Spider-Man, Spider-Man generally is very lighthearted, and then it takes a hard right turn and gets really dramatic because all the lighthearted humor. And I think this is just in the comics as well as the movies in general. The way it is it should be lighthearted. For when the heavy stuff happens, it hits you extra hard because you weren't expecting it.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, that's how I feel like Spider-Man sort of is. It's, you know, it's something that's almost like family friendly enough, but then you can have those real moments like when shit doesn't work out, you know.
And this movie definitely has a lot of that.
Yeah, well, then also top off, this also got Spider-Gwen in it too. I mean, there's just so much stuff going on here that like this to me just reminds me of like when I watched this movie, I felt like this is almost how I feel that I've always wanted superhero movies to be, is you put a bunch of characters in there. I know they always, for some reason, think that you can't put a bunch of characters in movies. I feel this movie 100% proves that wrong. You know what I mean? You can always have a bunch of characters in there, and it totally works. You don't need to do the classic 2-character dynamic. I think that's, to me, is always boring. You know? And yeah, just like everything about this, if you just did this in live action, I feel like that's the only thing this movie's missing, because, you know, there's always gonna be people out there who's like, well, yeah, it's a cartoon, so it's not real. It's not a real movie. If it was live action, as in it's all CG, which is still a cartoon, but that's real to me. Real, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But whatever, like beyond that point, if you just did this in, let's just say, semi-live action, and just did identical, didn't change anything, it's like, you would have like the best live action Spider-Man movie, if that's what you want to do. It's all plausible. Why not?
Yeah, but even that being said, I still think this movie works better in animation, just because I think it fits the style better. Well, you could definitely do it in live action, but I love the style. I'm glad this movie is what it is.
I personally actually like animation more than I like live action. Like, there's generally, to me, like an animated movie is always going to probably outbeat a live action movie. I think animation is just kind of cooler, and you can do more things in it, and it has that slicker look, you know? Maybe if, like, live action would go full, like, just totally be like what an animation is, then maybe I would enjoy it more. But yeah, no, I think it's much better this way. I'm just saying that's trying to get mom and pop in Oklahoma to like jump on board. You know what I mean? Because we all know there's always those people out there. It's a cartoon, so it's not a real movie. That kind of attitude.
Yeah, well, this is one I myself really recommend, just because definitely best Spider-Man movie ever made.
But yeah, so enough Spider-Man, I guess. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is Sorry to Bother You.
Oh, that was a good one. I did watch that one just recently, like, because you told me about that one, so I made sure I went out and got every single one that you recommended, and this was one of the ones, and Boots Riley directs it and everything like that, and it's actually, like, this is one of those movies, it's kind of like in that Mandy category, like, you just almost don't know what you're really getting into in it, and then, like, I love just the farther it goes, the darker and weirder it kind of becomes. And it was actually a pretty interesting movie. It's one of those ones, like, if I had a top 15 list, it would have been on there.
Well, this one for me, it was just one of these movies that, how'd I put it? Like, it feels kind of like an Adult Swim movie, sort of.
Yeah.
Because it got so weird, so bizarre. It got very, like, I don't know, like, I'm like not sure how many, because the humor in it, like, so if anybody hasn't seen the trailer, because I know this is a movie that got a wide release. Seen the trailer.
I don't think this was like super limited release.
Like, so essentially, it takes place in West Oakland and or Oakland in general, I guess. But this dude named Cassius Green is just low on money. He's having trouble getting a job, so he gets a job at a telemarketing agency, and works his way up. And this is like, it's just one of those things when you first see the movie, like, what the fuck? When you first see it, he's like, right, his cubicle is right next to Danny Glover. He says like, no, man, this is how you're gonna, no one's gonna pick up the call if they hear you. You gotta use your what voice? And suddenly it's somebody else entirely doing Danny Glover's voice, like, hello there, how can I help you? Like that. And then whatever Cassius Green does his voice, it's David Cross doing his voice.
Yeah.
That's...
Well, it's kind of funny, because I remember, like, back in the day when I was in San Francisco and I had, like, a salesman job for a bit, it was almost the exact opposite way, because I remember, like, just, like, learning the ropes, and there was this black guy that was he's like, I'm from Las Vegas or whatever, you know, I've been selling things for years, I can sell anything, you know what I mean? And they'd be like, you know that woman over there works there? Fucking hate that bitch, but here's the thing, we both love the color green, so that's all that matters. Now, you stay with me, you listen up. And this guy would do the thing, like, where he'd go to sell people. He'd go up to, like, you know, like the white couple and be like, hey, you guys want to see this house here? You can get this rental here. I got all kinds of cool stuff you need. Like, I mean, like, I can afford it. I mean, you guys can probably afford it, right? And they'd be like, well, honey, I guess if this black man can afford it, like, why can't we? He's like, perfect, come on over and get signed up. I felt like he used the blackness to, like, his advantage, because if he said that, like, yo, like, you know, I can do it. I mean, like, look at me, I'm short and black. I can do whatever, you know, and I can afford it. Well, you tell me you can't afford it?
Was it Kevin Hart or some shit?
No, it's not that short. But, and then I remember there was another guy who was really cool. He was like an Asian guy, but he used, like, broken English to, like, his advantage there. And then it was just more interesting watching the people that sold, because, of course, the white guy had, like, the rockabilly, like, used car salesman kind of look like, let me flip the collar up and go talk to these guys.
Hey there, folks. How you doing?
Yeah, like, can I interest
you? Talking like Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, literally looked like he was ready for like a Bruce Springsteen concert almost. That's how the white guy was looking. But it was almost like everybody was using sort of like their stereotypes to like their advantage in selling. It was kind of weird.
It's like, you look like a man that has a little bit of dirt underneath his nails. That doesn't mean you shouldn't live a life of luxury. Come on this way, man.
Yeah. So I just thought it was kind of funny when I watched this. Like, oh, use your white person's voice. I'm like, oh, maybe on the phone it's different, because in real life it's like that. But what I kind of like is in this movie is like, I love that, like, because it doesn't really tell you it right off the bat, but you kind of realize it's like, oh, this is sort of like a sci-fi movie, but like, it's not so sci. It's not like Blade Runner where like you know right off the first like second you watch the movie that you're into a sci-fi thing. It's just like there's hints of sci-fi throughout it, but through the rest of it, it's like maybe only 5 years into the future kind of sci-fi.
Yeah, well, it just a few things like that, and then what ends up happening is he works his way up, and there's this company that sends essentially there's like. They try and sell it like, look, you don't have to worry. You work for us for the rest of your life. You just sign this right here. We provide food, shelter, and don't worry about it. You don't have to worry about bills. You work until you die, but we'll give you a life of comfort on your days off. And it just, everyone's always like protesting it, saying it's like the new human slavery. And the further he goes up, because a bunch of his co-workers are starting to protest the company, saying they won't fucking pay us living wages. But as he works his way up, it's like one of those things is just totally one of those ridiculous things. This is kind of where it feels a little bit more like an Adult Swim thing, where as you work your way up, you go from selling things like encyclopedias or just like, you know, nature programs or whatever. You start going to the point, okay, I'm selling nuclear bombs and drones and to world leaders. Like these are like you work your way up, you start making calls.
It's just literally above the other sales place in the same building.
Yeah, like this total unreal, like this total like thing, like no fucking way that'd be the same company. And those guys don't even have that conversation on the phone. So he's calling like world leaders and generals, saying, "Hello there, sir. How would you like a new set of drones?" You know, and and like when he gets up there, I don't remember this actor's name, but there's another black dude up there who has an eye patch, and he's voiced by Patton Oswalt whenever he does his white voice. So And then Armie Hammer plays like the leader of the company, who plays such a fucking unlikable douchebag, but in some way you kind of like him. Like,
it's Armie Hammer. That's the reason why.
There's small little subtleties to him. Like, there's a part where he's just such a fucking douche, and he says, like, it's just small things like this. He's like, I really got to use the bathroom. Like, we got to watch this video first. I really got to use the bathroom. He's like, oh. He's like, go now. And as he runs out the room, he turns like a sand dial over. It's just like dumb shit like that. I don't want to say more about the movie.
Well, yeah, because this movie is movies that has like one of the coolest, weirdest twists as you kind of go farther into it. That I feel it's one of those few ones where it's like it's almost best not to be said, because this thing takes a hardcore sci-fi turn. Like it goes from being just like lightly into the future to being like, oh shit, something's really going down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this definitely does feel kind of like a Street Sweeper Social or The Coup kind of movie.
Well, it's literally got like, it was music by The Coup the whole way through as well too.
Yeah. I was actually listening to the soundtrack, a little bit of it too, like a few times. So, yeah, I'd say check it out.
Yeah, that one's great. Plus, it's what I like about the humor in it too. It has like tons of those like my favorite. I always just call them subtle jokes. You know what I mean? Where it's just like it's not meant to be a big joke, and sometimes it's like one of those ones that you could almost bypass it if you sort of blink. But there's just a lot of like those neat little ones like sprinkled throughout there. Like it's just such a well-made movie and just such an interesting film. Plus, I feel it also has that kind of Clerks like relatability to being just like having like the low end job that kind of, I mean, it transforms, it goes on, but has almost that Office Space sort of like step in that it's like almost like if you had Office Space or Clerks and then all of a sudden like something fucking weird kind of happened by about Act 3.
It feels kind of like a little bit of like kind of Clerks-ish. I want to say it feels a little bit more like Office Space with Spike Lee, which has something similar I'm going to say about another movie down the line later, but it feels kind of like Office Space with Spike Lee with a little bit of Adult Swim.
Yeah, it definitely kind of has that. And then, then it also even has like that Running Man feel to it, because they're always watching these goofy TV shows on there where it's like, how much would you...
Or RoboCop.
We're like there's that one where it's like, you get punched in the fucking face or whatever it was, or like, you get the shit kicked out.
It's a show where someone's just getting, I got the shit kicked out of me, just people getting the fuck beat out of them. Danny Glover's like, this is my favorite show.
I got my own t-shirt and everything. And anytime Danny Glover's in something, it's always amazing. Well, Danny Glover's just amazing. But what number was that? Was that 2?
That was my number 3.
Okay, well my number 3 is Aquaman. I'm just having this. I blocked all my superhero movies into one section. Mostly I spread them out, but like that's how it goes. Now Aquaman to me was like the definitive superhero movie in live action. You know, I mean, the Spider-Man one's really good. Now, this is probably just a DC thing. It's just like the DC-ness is always going to outweigh the Marvel. Just how it goes. But no, this Aquaman movie, I thought, as far as, I mean, granted, if you don't like superhero movies, well then, yeah, it's definitely not going to hit home for you. But if you want just like one of the best dialed-in superhero movies, this Aquaman one was totally it. It was balanced. It had constant adventure in it. And what I even liked about that adventure is it started to give me this vibe about, halfway into it that it felt like Romancing the Stone, which sounded kind of weird, but I actually kind of like that even more. They really got in like all of Aquaman's, characters and universe, and they didn't have to, what I kind of like is, once again, like the Constantine one, they didn't have to use Batman or Wonder Woman or even Superman or anybody to help sell it. It was all Aquaman the whole way through, They had Black Manta in there, and they did an awesome job of him. He was so cool, and it went 100% superhero. It felt like it was past the point of like, let's hold back and kind of keep it grounded in reality. And I think also for like the DC movies, it's just kind of nice to see it go. It went full comic book. It just said, no, this is like literally a DCU movie done live action. I mean, and granted, it's kind of hard to like say against a Batman movie, but I almost will say it's like, if you kind of disinclude the Batman-ness of the movies, this is probably the best DCU movie ever made. Granted, Batman will probably always outweigh it, like Dark Knight or something like that, and Batman Begins. But, as far as just like a great, just full throttle action movie, there's humor in there, but they don't go Marvel with it. They don't do too much. It's just a nice little sprinkle. The characters look great. The world is. I think also just being like this kind of underwater environment. Like, I think that to me is like, I've never seen that before in a movie. I've seen it in like a video game, but I've never seen that before in a full-on live-action movie. I mean, granted, I know it's CG with 2 like regular characters standing around, but for the most part, you have that there. You got Aquaman's world. You got like all the 7 different sea kind of kingdoms down there and whatnot. And as the movie even progresses too, it even starts feeling kind of like Gears of War like. It goes that distance, and has like the crab like people, or what are they called?
There's the trench.
The trench.
They
got those guys in there. I mean, yeah. To me, it was like the perfect Aquaman experience, especially for anybody. It's like if you're ever a person who just wanted to get into Aquaman, I feel like this is the total like best place to start. It gives you 100% the Aquaman story. Even in the origin stuff, it's never like, hey, let's stop and do the origin for like 40 minutes before the movie. It's like, no. It's just kind of sprinkled in there so you learn a little bit about him, but still always having great action the whole way through. Yeah, I love this one. This one's ones I'd love to see again in theaters before it's out. It's that good.
It's definitely on my list of things to see. That's one that I'm surprised it got by me, but
yeah,
I'm definitely going to see it.
That almost just feels like a new Batman movie came out, and you're like, I'll get around to it. I mean, I know
it's not Batman. It's not Batman, but it's not Batman.
It's still in that. I don't know. To me, in the DC category, it's all kind of like I almost kind of put it all together in the same place.
There's Marvel characters I like more than Aquaman, so it's kind of one of those things. I mean, I'll say this: I like DC more generally, but there's still some Marvel things I like more than DC every once in a while. And Aquaman is one I definitely want to see, definitely on my list. It's just I mean, I had every intention to see it, but it just, busy holiday schedule and busy shit with work. So I'm going to definitely make time to see it.
You've got to see that in theaters before it's out, or else you'll be kicking yourself for the rest of your life. I feel.
Oh, I'm sure, because it's never going to be played on a screen ever again, I'm sure.
Probably not. I mean, movies, it's not common to find older movies on big screen once again, especially, I think nowadays, too, the more and more there is. I mean, unless we all live in some radical future where we all have our own, like, movie theaters and so on, but no, I definitely will say, this is one of those movies you'll watch and be like, shit, that movie just knocked off so many of my ones on my list already.
Well, we'll find out. I'll check it out, though. I'll definitely check that one out. So, I guess that's our number. Was that your number 3 or was that your number 2? My number 2 is Blind Spotting.
Well, that's a good movie right there. This is one of these ones that would have been the perfect number 11 for me. Because that was I was pretty impressed by that movie.
Because that was a movie I kind of went into it blind.
You literally went in blind spotting.
Yeah, that was a snare drum. Anyway, going into this movie, I didn't really know a whole lot about it. I just knew it was set in Oakland, and just seeing it, this is where it felt a little bit more of kind of like an old Spike Lee movie meets Clerks or something like that. That's what this kind of felt like to me. And it's just essentially these two friends. I talked about it briefly on the show right when I saw it, but it's these two friends. This black dude and this white dude who is like just a total wigger.
Well, it's
just
funny because he's blacker than the black guy, ironically.
Tries to portray himself that way. Yeah.
Well, it's almost like if you close your eyes, it's almost he sounds blacker than the white guy. The black guy almost has a white voice compared to this guy. It's so weird how it is.
Well, it's like you even see him I mean, you think you're gonna hate him. When I saw the poster and I was walking the theater, I'm probably gonna hate that character. And no, he's a really good character.
He's like the best character in the movie.
I think I'm trying to remember their names. I want to say Miles is the crazy one, and was it Connor or Colin?
I think
Colin. I think his name was Colin. Is the more chill dude. Well, Colin's the black dude, and he just got off parole. He's like 3 days till he's done with parole, and it's one of these things where he has his friend Miles, who's been his best friend since they were kids, and he's always kind of getting into shit, and he's always trying to help bail him out, or he always helps escalate a situation. The thing about Miles, though, is you see, this movie shows you why he gets along with him so good. You kind of get, every so often you have one of these movies like, why the fuck do you hang out with this guy? And you're like, oh, I kind of see why you hang out with this guy. This guy's funny, he's quick-witted, he's a good dad, he's a good husband, this and that. But then every so often it's like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Like one of those kind of moments would happen. And it's one of these movies, and I'm not going to try and lead this into a political thing, but it's one of those movies that kind of speaks on gentrification of California, primarily West Oakland. And
that's where it centers, but I feel like it relates to all of California.
Yeah, it centers in West Oakland, but I think it speaks on all of California. And it's not beating you over the head over it, but they mention a few things offhand, and it just kind of builds up. And it even brings in some things about, like, cultural appropriation and that kind of thing. Because there's a part where, Miles, he's lived in Oakland his whole life. He's totally all about Oakland, that lifestyle. And at some point, some kind of black hipster comes up to him. He's like, man, you don't got to act all ghetto just because you're in Oakland. And then he doesn't realize, he thinks he's just some white guy just trying to look all thug.
It's like, this is who he is.
Yeah. And it's one of these things where this movie, it does a great job of actually, because another thing that happens is Colin witnesses a cop shooting a guy, and out of that he gets kind of PTSD about that, and plus, especially with only 3 days left of his parole, it's one of these things that's constantly haunting him. And there's so many moments in this movie you're watching where you get tense because they keep on nailing you over the head. It's 3 days. You just have to get 3 days, and it's just like, oh shit. So anytime anything slightly illegal happens, you just really clinch up, like, oh shit, get out of this. And it's just essentially these guys hanging out, but things just after a while kind of build up, and it's just a really good day in the life movie, and it's my number 2.
What I like too is there's a scene where, like, when you finally figure out like why Colin like went to jail or whatever, he's like, because he works for they work for a moving company and so on, and there's this like 2 Asian guys that come in, they're like, oh shit, dude, you're the dude, and it's just like, and he's like, oh no, I'm not that guy, he's like, no, dude, you're so the guy, I was there that night, and he goes to explain the story. When I just love about the way he explains it just reminds me like the kind of a way that like a man would explain a story compared to like the way that like a woman would kind of see it, where like it's actually like really like in the long run it's not a good thing, but this guy sees like, dude, this is the coolest fucking thing ever. There was this guy, this douchey white guy went inside and he got this big old fucking Dragon Ball drink, and they had a fire shooting out of it and everything, and he thought it was the coolest thing ever. He thought he was the champ, so he decides he's gonna take it outside, and this guy right here, he was working, he was the bouncer that night and so on, so he tells him you can't do it, and it's like he's narrating it the whole way through and so on. And they
actually make it comical too.
Yeah, it's like really just funny the way it is, just like this. It's like there's small things in there the way it goes, because this movie's almost one of those ones. It's a drama, but it's really just as equally a comedy. It's one of those movies that if you put in your comedy section, totally fits. If you put in your drama section, really could put it there too. But I'd almost even say it probably almost leans more comedy, just like with dramatic elements, I guess.
Well, it kind of does the same thing, I guess, going back to Spider-Man for a second, does the same thing, where there's so many comedic elements, but when the emotional, intense parts hit you, they really hit you. Because there's a couple of parts where it's just like, we're having fun, and something happens, like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
So I'd still like a dramatic comedy, but you could definitely put in your comedy section.
Yeah, but I just love when that guy's explaining this, like, you know what, he tells me he can't bring that alcohol outside, he's got to keep it back inside. The guy's like, well, I just want to show my friends. And I love how they're always just like narrating this guy, and they just get in this brawl and so on. Like, you kind of realize how it is. The guy drops his Dragon Ball, and the thing explodes, and then it like lights the guy on fire as he's getting beat down by the 2 main characters. Which at the same time, I'm like, fuck that guy. That guy deserved it. Like, really, Colin shouldn't have went to jail at all. That's that fucking stupid what?
That dude was a fucking douchebag.
That guy was a total asshole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was just one of those, like, overprivileged people who just thinks they can do whatever they want. Who doesn't follow fucking orders.
But the thing is, because he's telling that story in front of the dude's ex-girlfriend, and to him, the story's fucking amazing. Oh, dude, that was so fucking awesome. And to the girl, she's like, no, fucking ruin your life.
He went to jail for whatever, 2 years or whatever, and now look at you. Now you're at a box company, and somehow, some way, I work here too.
She probably got
that's what I was thinking too. Somehow, some way, just like that other Oakland movie where everything's connected in that one building. It's an Oakland thing. It's everything. Everybody's in the same place. But no, I thought that movie just represented, because like the enemy of the movie, the bad guys of the films are hipsters, and I always just feel I think that's the bad guy to anybody generally. It's not saying that hipsters are always bad people, but like in California, it totally makes sense though, because I feel in the last like 15, 20 years, that has been sort of the people that nobody seems to like, is like the hipsters. It's always like, oh, there's another fucking hipster moving in here or something like that. Granted, probably 75% of them are all nice fellas and gals, but there's the 25 that are douchebags stand out so heavily that like, I think that's what people always see. It's the kind of thing is, the good people don't stand out. Good people in life never stand out. They just kind of filter in. But bad people, it can be one person out of 100, and you'll remember that one person.
Well, the thing about the movie is it gets the point across that some of these people are like, they're not trying to be dicks, or they're not trying to be douchey, but they're kind of a little like oblivious to the effects they have on the environment around them, such as pushing prices up, like when they're moving out, when they're moving all these this old furniture out of this one house, and it's a really sad scene. Like, you see like this really privileged kind of like, you know, young yuppie ass lady kind of like, oh my god, yeah, you see this house, like, we just got this thing, we're gonna renovate it, we got it for such a cheap price, we're gonna bring it up, it's gonna be so amazing when it's done, can you guys move all that, thank you, bye, you know, just move out. And as you see, as they're getting rid of all this stuff, it's just you see photo albums of like this black family, all these little knickknacks that you don't know the story, but you know this house has a story. And you see like the super privileged lady just going, oh my god, we're just gonna renovate the whole thing, it's gonna be fantastic, we're gonna put the prices up, you know. So it kind of speaks on that in a very, you know, what's the word I'm looking for here, in a very not articulate, but very not adequate. There's another word I'm thinking of. Whatever. A very God, I can't say the fucking word. The word I'm thinking of is the exact opposite of what I am right now. But
yeah, just
a very smooth way. Let's just say.
Yeah, there we go. And it's just, yeah, it does just kind of show, because I mean, like, really, that's a lot of places in California. It doesn't matter where you are. Like, in any place, you know, you get these people moving in, and they think it's all kind of hip and cool and fun and all this kind of stuff, but they don't realize that they really are, like, because I think it's the thing is they come in with like their Portland attitudes, and so I'm using that because that's the movie reference, and they start changing it to what they want to see, not necessarily what's already there. They kind of go, well, yeah, you had this and that, which is kind of cool, but let's throw that out. What if we throw these elements in instead? And people fucking hate that shit. It's, you know, it happens. It's the classic small townness when somebody comes in, takes over a business, and then radically changes it to the point where it's like it's unrecognizable to what it ever was, and it's like they could care less about the locals almost.
Exactly. They don't realize it. Like, that's maybe not their intention, but it just kind of happens that way without even thinking.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? We've seen it many a times. You see a business that gets so radically changed, and granted, they bought it. They technically can do whatever they want with it. That's how, you know, a money transfer works. But when it comes down to kind of community and history and so on, I feel like you should honor that kind of stuff in a sense if you're going to come to an area.
Mm-hmm. And won't stay hooked up on this movie too long. It was really good, but I like how Miles like half the movie's like, save your hood, kill a hipster.
Yeah, exactly. I love that shirt.
On his t-shirt.
I know. So that one's just that's just a good comedy, I thought that film was. And then just kind of speaks on stuff. I mean, all kinds of fun stuff in there.
So what's your number 2?
My number 2 is the El Royale. That's the one I had for there.
And I was not done watching that movie. I was about halfway done. I really liked what I saw, but I can't put the movie on the list because without seeing how it ends. And I already kind of got the idea of like, okay, anybody can go at any moment, and you know.
Well, that's what I liked about that movie. Is that movie, like, you really didn't know how it was going to go, especially the first time you watch it. You just kind of go, because I've watched it twice by now, and it's one of those ones where there's just the twist and the turns in it, and the fact that it really all takes place in this one hotel. I mean, just including some extra, like, you know, kind of like storytelling, origin stories of each character. Beyond that, it all takes place in this hotel in Lake Tahoe that's right on the border of California and Nevada, so it makes for kind of a neat location in 1969. And during this process, you just have these different guys coming and gals staying at this hotel, and just watching this kind of mystery unfold. Like, you almost don't want to talk too much about the movie, because or else I feel like you give away what makes it kind of neat. But it has like this almost like a 60s noir is almost a way I could kind of feel like it. I mean, people say it's like,
definitely.
Some people always say it's like you see some people just go like, it's just a Tarantino knockoff, it's stupid. Well, it's got Tarantino elements, but I feel it's still way different than, like, you know, I mean, here's the thing, if you like Tarantino movies, I feel like you should like this one. I don't see why you wouldn't. It's in that same ballpark. And realistically, at the end of the day, like, there's nothing wrong with a Tarantino knockoff. I realize that I like most Tarantino knockoff type movies. Like, so that's never a bad thing. If I hear that, I kind of go, oh, I kind of want to watch that movie even more.
Well, I think it's a Tarantino knockoff in the idea of, like, you got these characters, and this isn't even something strictly a Tarantino thing. This is just something that he made really popular. You got a diverse group of characters. There's something dark going on. It has upbeat, poppy music from, like, a certain era. And then at any moment, somebody can die brutally. You don't know who. And this thing definitely, from what I saw, it felt a lot like Hateful Eight, but Hateful Eight, I'm sure, is something he pulled out of another, like, because he likes to make homages to shit. So it wouldn't surprise me the least bit if Hateful Eight was from something else.
Yeah, exactly.
What inspired him?
It does have a definite, like, kind of Hateful Eight vibe to it, but I just really like this one. I was really impressed, you know. And Jeff Bridges, of course, steals the show as always. And then when you got fucking Thor that comes in later on, who's playing like pretty much Jim Morrison meets like Charles Manson, I think that's just an awesome character right there.
I think I know where it's going. I've only seen halfway.
Well, did Chris Hemsworth show up yet?
He is not.
Okay.
But who I'm assuming the girl who, like, Dakota Johnson's little sister, not huge spoiler here, whoever Dakota Johnson's sister was on the phone with, I'm assuming that's Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah, that's Chris Hemsworth. But once he shows up, he just does a phenomenal job in this movie too, and just like. But it's just got cool scenery in it. It's got great music. Just the set itself is built nice. I don't know. It's just one of those movies, like, I thought it was really cool. And I wanted to watch it the second time. Because I was like, because some of those movies, like mystery movies, sometimes can be super amazing the first time you watch them. And then the second time you watch them, once you kind of already know, it's like, well, it's cool, but not as cool as that first viewing. But I still actually really enjoy it the second time. Because then you can kind of take in all the extra nuances and look in the background and see what's really going on here. But,
well, without spoiling anything, there's also some moments, just from what I've seen, where somebody does something. You're like, oh, shit. And you're like, oh, that's why they were doing that. Okay. Yeah. You know, it's one...
Well, I was just going to say, I like that kind of stuff in the movie, because you almost can't... The first time you watch it, you really can't gauge what anybody's actions are, who it is, what they're doing. Like, it always kind of... Everything kind of has its own unique twist, and you're not really too sure where it's going to go and who's going to make it out in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm probably going to finish that movie up once we're done with the show.
Yeah, because boy, if I knew you were watching that one, I would have waited longer to do the podcast.
Yeah, it's all good though. I mean, I'm gonna go still see. I got to see Mandy. I got to see Aquaman, and then I got to see this one. And who knows? Might retroactively go back, take a few things off.
But yeah, that's my number 2. So what's your number 1?
My number 1, we can wrap this thing up on my end. My number 1 is Spider-Verse. And I do not want to spoil too much. Not only is this my favorite Spider-Man movie, this is probably one of my top 5 favorite superhero movies. And, you know, I can't think of... Every so often you'll see a movie and you think, you know what, I wish they changed this, I wish they changed that, but overall I really like it. I can't really say that about this movie. I can't really think of anything I could add to it or could move around to make it better. You know what I mean? This is just one of those movies like, no, this is fine as is, and I really like it. This is definitely going to be a buy. Plus, one of the smartest things about that movie, and I'm not going to talk about it all over again, but one of the smartest things about that movie is it took, you know, we've seen the Spider-Man origin 1,000 times, and the movie acknowledges that, and it still does it, but it does it in a way like, well, it's Miles Morales. Not everyone knows Miles Morales, but there's enough of a different twist there to, even though it's his story, there's enough Spider-Man shit going on to make you invested, so we don't have to wait to the halfway point of the movie for him to get on the suit or something like that.
Yeah, I think I always feel that's the smart way to do it. It's like, there's nothing wrong with an origin story, but you got to keep the people still entertained along the way, is always kind of my theory. And the thing about that one is Miles Morales has his origin story going on, but here's the thing. Peter Parker's already been there. And in fact, you know, the Peter Parker in that one, the one that dies, you know, for anybody, he could be the Peter Parker from the animated series in like the 90s. You know what I mean? You just pick he could be Peter Parker from the Sam Raimi movies. I feel like it's kind of like whatever Peter Parker you like, that's your Peter. Whatever Peter Parker you like, that's your Peter Parker. And now he's dead.
I took it as that was like kind of like because he was blonde. Peter Parker is traditionally always brown hair.
Because I remember that kind of threw me off at first. I'm like, the fuck? They made him blonde? And I was like, oh, okay, I see where this is going. It's like Captain America, Spider-Man.
Yeah, he was blonde, so that's why that doesn't seem like the real Peter Parker to me. I think Beer Gut Peter Parker could be the real Peter Parker, but at the same time, it doesn't really matter because it's like the whole thing of the movie is anyone can wear the mask. Yeah. So, and it's just a movie that, you know, I just, you know, walked out of just feeling just great, you know, just I can't think of a, I don't know, it kind of made me feel like a kid again, you know?
Yeah, no, I totally agree too. That was one of those movies that was like pure perfect. You know, you could not. I mean, like, I really feel like, you know, Aquaman was really just as good, but it's a live action one. It's always kind of hard to compare those two together, sort of, just because, you know, you can do so much.
Just your DC-ness.
I think my DC-ness kind of outweighs it, but I'll say I think the Spider-Man movie is literally just as good as the Aquaman movie. Like, they're like on par. Like, as I said, I got them back to back with each other, so it's kind of just one of those ones there. But yeah, to me, I would say best Spider-Man movie ever made. Easily one of the best Marvel movies. By far, like, definitely. I mean, I only watched it once, so I always feel like you always gotta give it the second watch guarantee. But
who knows? Maybe I'll watch this movie and like, it's good. Never mind, it's not top 5. Maybe I'll say that. I don't think I will.
Well,
though.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
Definitely, it probably will always be like for sure high up there. But there might be one where you're like, well, okay, maybe it's not the best one or whatever. I don't know. That's a tough call there. But it's definitely a multiple watch movie. I could see owning it right off the bat.
Yeah, to me, it's definitely. I feel like I could even like say I like it more than any Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. So
I can easily say that for sure. I'll say that right off the bat.
Yeah, but I mean that's also competing against Captain America: Civil War and Guardians 1 and Avengers 2.
Cap 2.
So yeah, Cap 2. So you know because you know we may kick down Marvel Cinematic Universe every once in a while, but really, I mean when it gets down to it, they got a good at least 10 really solid movies and 5 like damn near perfect movies. That being said, though, this is better than all 5 of those damn near perfect movies.
Yeah, well, I'll even say it's like this movie is even more dialed in than by far as far as just, you know, quality control. This movie's 100% there more than any. I mean, like you might personally like another one of those Marvel ones more, but I think it's there more than any of the Marvel, you know, the Disney ones at least. Though I still always like the Marvel movies. I always feel like sort of like you kick them in the balls, but then you kind of like go like, I'll still hang out with you, but as long as I get kicked in the balls every once in a while, it's one of those things.
There's only 2 Marvel movies, 2 cinematic movies that I think are okay, and that were actually maybe
There's
3.
A couple of them.
And
Ant-Man and the Wasp is the first one I can think of right off the bat.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, Iron Man 2, Thor 2 are the only 3.
I like actually Thor 2. Not like I'm not gonna say it's amazing, but I actually like it more than I thought. And then even Iron Man 2, the last time I watched it, I was like, you know, it's actually still pretty enjoyable. I don't know. It's not like they're not like perfect movies or anything like that, but I feel like I like them more than I like Thor 3 is one of the ones where it's like I got the biggest mixed feelings on that one. Like half of that movie I think is just really good, and then there's other stuff that's just kind of like the silliness and the non-seriousness that movie takes almost kind of bothers me how they make it almost like a joke film.
Thor 3 is like a mid-range movie for me. Now, mid-range being like, oh no, it's good, it's fun to watch. I mean, there's no such thing as a Marvel cinematic universe movie that sucks.
Yeah, I don't think there's.
It's just one of those ones. You got 10 really good ones that are definitely probably worth owning, and they're really good, solid movies. And then you got 5 that are like perfect, and then you got like another 5 or 6 or whatever it is that are kind of like, oh, you know, it's okay. It's worth watching at least once.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, because that's how I sort of felt like Ant-Man and the Wasp was the one where I was like, if I never saw this movie, I would never be missing out on anything. But if you do watch it, it wasn't like it was a waste of your time kind of thing. It was just like, yeah.
And that's kind of how I felt about Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah, it was just like one of those ones. That should have been a cool movie, but I don't know. I don't know what the heck happened there. But but it has nothing to do with Spider-Man.
Anyway, your number
Spider-Man
1
is, and my number 1 is Hostiles.
Hostiles is your number 1.
That's my number 1. When I saw that movie in January, and I said, I'm like, dude, that's my favorite movie of the year so far. I'm like, I'll see what else comes up. And ironically, nothing ever came to top that movie. I kept it in the number 1 slot all year long. It was just that good of a film. And I don't know what it is, just something about the way that Scott Cooper makes those movies. It's just like, just that one, and like How the Fern is so good. Makes you really want, now that I know that Black Mass is made by him, I actually really want to go out and get that one, because he only has 4 movies. So it's like, that'd be interesting. And even like Crazy Heart's still pretty cool too. I mean, it's kind of like Wrestler with like, you know, a country singer instead. But
Wrestler with does he do a stage? He's like, you can't stage dive anymore. It's bad for your health. Like it's what I'm expecting at each show. Yeah. He looks at the into the backstage. Does not see his girlfriend there. So just dives right into the crowd.
I can't remember how he goes out in that movie. To tell you the truth, it's been a while since I've seen it. I almost want to say that movie has a little bit more of a happier ending compared to like The Wrestler. Well, The Wrestler's just, I don't know, The Wrestler's a perfect example. It's the same, it's that same feeling I get from like Out of the Furnace, where somebody could watch and be like, oh my god, that's just a really sad movie. I'm like, I don't know what it is. There's something uplifting about when I watch this movie every single time. And I almost like get weird comedy out of it that I know that, I don't know, maybe the director and the writer intentionally put it there, but I know that the average audience won't see it.
That's how I feel with The Wrestler. Wrestler is a really good movie. They're like, yeah, because some people are like, yeah, I don't know how often I can watch that movie. Like, I can just put that movie on and just work on
I've watched
something.
it like 8 or 9 times. Like, it's like, I've seen that one a lot. It's like, I like it. Same with like Out of the Furnace. And that's how I just feel like I feel like Hostiles like has a little bit of that comedy in there, but not nearly as much as the other one. I just think it's a fantastic Western. It's just solid the whole way through. It's a great story, super acting among everybody else. The locations are brilliant. Like, the whole way through it. That's a movie that I think got, like, absolutely no credit, sadly enough. I think even in the awards. Like, not that I really care about those, but sometimes it's like, really? It's like, I know you guys want to give a bunch of awards to that other Christian Bale movie that was still pretty good. Don't get me wrong, I like Vice, but it ain't no Hostile. Let me just say that.
Yeah, it's one of those things, if it came out a little later in the year, probably would have got a few nominations or something.
I just think it's so weird. It's like, you call it like, you're going to give awards for the entire year, but you only really count 3 months generally. I think that's such an odd thing. That's why I always feel like, I like when we talk about these movies, because we'll bring movies that people would never give awards to, and we can talk about them for like the gloriness they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people just kind of, they just get forgetful. So, yeah, no, that one is that I'm glad that, for a minute I was like, is it going to be Bohemian Rhapsody or was it going to be this? Because I have not seen Bohemian Rhapsody. I know you really like that one, so, but I was like,
Bohemian Rhapsody, I've knocked it off for Bigger. I did, and this sounds so weird, but because Bohemian Rhapsody is like pretty much a perfect movie, but I did this thing where I'm like, is it because like, but it's like don't get me wrong, it's a good movie, but is it because Queen is doing all the music that it makes it that much better? Like, I almost feel like that sort of cheats as like a movie. Because it's really like, it's a music video that has like scenes in between, you know what I mean, at the end of the day. And I know that most like music biopics are kind of like that, but that's how that movie kind of was. So I was like, you know what? I love that movie and it's pure perfect. It's like, it's totally like my honorable nomination is definitely the Queen one. Like, Bohemian Rhapsody was really, really, really awesome. Probably better than some of the movies I had on my list, but I felt like I'm almost going like, well, Queen's just really awesome. That probably almost like kind of cheats its way up there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I know that's a weird way to like kind of like, well, you're a movie about a band that's already awesome, so I can't give you as much credit.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad this one made your list too, because I was like, first off, to end the podcast, but at the same time, though, it's one of those things where like, this is a movie that I think didn't get enough praise, didn't get enough recognition. And I walked out of it thinking like, yeah, this was a really good movie, both as a Western and as a drama.
Yeah, just so good. And yeah, and then it just has badass action when it does have action in it too. So it's just all around cool movie, and I'm just glad you really enjoy Hostiles. I know that, you know, it's going to be one of those like kind of hidden gem movies. I feel that's kind of what this guy makes. I mean, granted, that's what I know Crazy Heart got like awards, but beyond that, it was like Out of the Furnace kind of is a hidden gem movie. Just cool stuff. I can't really wait to see.
Black Mass.
That one just kind of disappeared real quick. God, I feel kind of bad. If I would have known that was the same guy, I would have totally went and saw that movie right away. I mean, I was interested in seeing it, but I just never got around to it.
Black Mass is all right. It's kind of like,
it's not as good as the other ones.
Not as good as the other ones. Well, I never saw Crazy Heart. I don't like it as much as Hostiles or Out of the Furnace, but it's one of those things like, it's kind of like, how do I put it? I mean, they make Whitey Bulger a really creepy, sinister guy. At the same time, though, it's like, Departed is such a fun movie. I love The Departed, and this is the realistic version of Departed. So I'm like, I know, I know it's meant to be a biopic, and I know it's supposed to be the serious, realistic story. But I mean, I already kind of saw the CNN documentary, which was interesting as hell, and I already saw Departed, and you know, so it's one of those things. Like, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, it's kind of like trying to watch like John Carter after seeing Star Wars. It's just like, you know, I know this is the real thing. I know this is where it all started. But
here's this one that's even more entertaining. Let's just say it. It's got Jack Nicholson in it. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I'll say Black Mass is still worth seeing because his Johnny Depp is Whitey Bulger is still a really creepy, interesting role. But it's just it's a very slow turning movie. It's not a bad movie. It's worth seeing.
Yeah, I just like to see it anyways, just because I like that director so much. But but that's our list for the year. Any honorable mentions that you want to quickly shout out?
I guess you said about all my honorable mentions. I guess Constantine.
I know. Say most of them. It's like you pretty much for all my like extra
The Mule.
list. Yeah, The Mule was really good too. I knew that was not going to make my top 10, but I was like, I saw that movie twice in theaters. I liked it quite a bit.
The way you were with Bohemian Rhapsody, I'm like, is it on my top 10 just because it's Clint Eastwood? So
yeah, that's how I kind of felt too. I was like, I like that movie a lot, but There was also a handful of what I call there's some awesome action movies this year that I feel like they're all kind of in about the same. They're almost like hard to judge. It feels like if you had just an action only category, I'd say it. But I'm gonna say them super quick. There was Jason Momoa's Braven. That was badass. There was Peppermint with Jennifer Gardner. That was super awesome. And then I actually really liked that Tomb Raider movie quite a bit too. And then Equalizer 2 with Denzel. Like the
Equalizer 2.
Those are all like they're all kind of about like in the same kind of category. Like they felt like you could only pick one of them if you were gonna pick it. And I think I went with MI6 in a sense. You know what I mean? They're all kind of those just totally cool action films where you're watching them. But those are about my honorable mentions there.
You could call Equalizer 2 just Denzel's Wednesday.
Really is. Yeah, Equalizer 1, Denzel's Tuesday. Equalizer 2, Denzel's Wednesday. Plus, the one thing about the Equalizer 2, though, I'm going to say this real quick, is that ending battle scene where they're fighting in that evacuated town during, like, a hurricane. That is just an amazing set piece. That set piece, I feel, needs to be honored for how awesome it is. That was, like, the main reason I really was going to have Equalizer 2 on my list for a long time, and I don't know why I didn't put it on there. Sometimes now that I think about it, but that good.
Yeah, no, good movie. I know we said, like, let's try to make this under 2 hours. Now, I'm glad that turned out. Not as long as a Marvel Studios movie right here, but
yeah. That just kind of happens with these. Good thing we didn't have another person on there. That was my fear, as I knew it would go for days if that was the case. But other than that, though, check out some of these movies. All fun times to have if you have not seen them yet, or if you'd like to watch them again. Maybe we'll put some links into kind of on Amazon and so on to get there. But till then, check out oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, comics, cartoons, music, movies, and more. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Dunigan.
See you some other time.
Later, folks.
Thanks again for listening to the Old Man Orange Podcast. Sure, check out oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, cartoons, music, animation, and a whole lot more. We also have the Old Man Orange blog going with all kinds of fun stuff. If you easily want to support the show, use one of our Amazon links either on the website or in the description of the podcast below. Rate, review, and subscribe to the show either on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Newgrounds, or anywhere else that you seem to get this podcast from. Grab the sitcom-styled comic book Pizza Boys on either Comix Central, Comixology, or Amazon. Want more podcasts? Check out the Indie Comics Club over at Comix Central. I also got a workout website called Thor's Hidden Gym, filled with fitness tips and tricks, videos, and a whole lot more fun stuff in the calisthenics world. Talk to us on Twitter at Spencer S. Holmes and Dunigan Ryan. Like our Facebook pages of Old Man Orange Productions and Pizza Boys Comic. Thanks again. We're out of here.